What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 7ts Chapter 126 Unfolding in Confusion, Ready to Execute. Advertisement. As Kuchiki's voice fell, the Senbonsakura in his hand also fell off his hand. The tip of the knife goes straight down, sinking into the ripples in the ground, disappearing. The power, like ripples, diverged from where the blade had entered. At this moment, with Kuchiki Zia as the center, huge blades rise on both sides. It seems that this is the first time I have seen Dabai's solution. There was a trace of envy in Shimo's eyes. To be honest, it looks pretty. A hint of helplessness flashes in Shihouen Yoruichi's cat eyes. Co-offering such a powerful solution, you only see good looks? Why'd I always feel like you were mocking others? However, Shihouen Yoruichi knows that Shimo's ability to give a good-looking evaluation is already very rare. The huge blade of Bailey on the ground, at the end of Byakuya Kuchiki's mind, suddenly turned into countless Sakura Hualus scattered between the sky and the earth. It's over, Renji. In the calm voice, no emotional fluctuations could be heard. Abarai Renji stared at the petals of Sakura that pierced his cheek in horror, his eyes frozen. Boom! The building behind him was instantly shattered under the impact of countless Sakura petals. The moment the rubble fell, the injury broke out. Puff chick chick. Countless bloodstains appeared on Abarai Renji's body, like the eyes of a fountain, bursting out a lot of blood. King Zabumaru was also crushed instantly by the impact of Sakura's petals. Abarai Renji knelt on the ground feebly, eyes blank. What a wonderful battle. Shimo jumped from the top of the supporting building and came to Byakuya Kuchiki. It's you again. Facing Shimo, Byakuya Kuchiki feels helpless. His own iceberg-like disguise has absolutely no effect in front of him. Hey, 14 Byakuya brother. The black cat greeted her by waving her paws. Shihouen Yoruichi. When Byakuya Kuchiki saw the black cat, he was alert to the sudden increase. How did you come back to Soul Society? Shihouen Yoruichi has appeared in front of Byakuya Kuchiki for the first time since he followed Shimo to the Yuling Palace. Do not worry, Shimo said with relief, I brought in Yoruichi. As for the details, I will explain to you later. If Renji doesn't get any treatment, the 6th division will have to change to a deputy captain. When Byakuya Kuchiki saw Abarai Renji lying on the ground, his heart became angry. The good deputy captain quits and has to go to jail. After finally seeing Shimo, I will give you another chance and choose to escape from prison. After a set of operations, he almost buried his future. Renji. Shimo squatted in front of him, put his right hand on his head, and the green light was released in his palm. Sometimes, you can't just look at things with your eyes. For the self-proclaimed wild dog Abarai Renji, Shimo still agrees. The good character of a decent person, but it can be seen in him. Learn to watch with your heart, Shimo said earnestly. Abarai Renji's expression was a little dazed, and then the color of thinking flashed in his eyes. Do you look at the world with your heart? Although it is not very clear what Shimo really means, it seems to mean something. Standing by, Byakuya Kuchiki frowned slightly, thinking about the meaning of Shimo's words. Okay, the treatment is over. Shimo stood up, and Abarai Renji's injury was also mostly recovered. Kuchiki did not inflict too serious injuries on Kuchiki when he showed his solution. Abarai Renji, the deputy captain, is relatively easy to use for him. It would be a shame to die here like this. What's more, he is not wrong. Even Kuchiki, a person who adheres to the rules of Soul Society, thinks that the judgment of Room 46 is really excessive. Losing spiritual power to humans is not unheard of in the history of Soul Society. However, Shinigami's punishment is only to be exiled to a deserted place, or to be imprisoned in hell. Look at Hinamori Momo's sentence, torture, advertisement. The penalties that have been used against people who have committed serious crimes have been applied to people who have committed misdemeanors. It's like an anti-aircraft gun hitting mosquitoes, which is really unreasonable. Renji, you have been defeated by Dabai today. Shimo said earnestly, so your battle is over here. If you are on the hill of double touch, let me see you do it again. The consequences, it's not that serious injuries are so easy. Kuchiki frowned slightly, not because Shimo's words were excessive. It's because this guy actually called out the title of Dazi in front of his subordinates. But in order to maintain your image, it's better not to get angry. Byakuya Kuchiki tried to suppress his restless emotions. Looking at Shimo's calm and gentle expression, I don't know why, a chill came out in Abarai Renji's heart, covering his whole body and heart. Just like when Shimo and Hitsugaya Dashiro fought. The chill climbed all the way from the soles of the feet and ran straight to the tinling guy along the tail vertebrae. Grunt. Abarai Renji swallowed subconsciously. In the face of Kuchiki's self-confidence, he was still able to pluck up the courage and take action in anger. But now, he can be sure that he definitely does not have the courage to attack Shimo. Just like the gap between dimensions, even estimation is impossible. I know it. Hearing this, Shimo smiled on his face and said. Don't worry, Hinamori Momo will not die. Abarai Renji was a little surprised when he heard that. However, Shimo then added a sentence in his heart, and the end is likely to be more painful than death. Real despair is not to be in the dark all the time. But after giving you light, push into the abyss again. Hinamori Momo, that's how it ended. Let's go to Shuangchang Hill. Shimo looked to the south, on the high cliff. At the same time, Yuling Tingzong. Zaraki Kenpachi stopped running wildly and looked at the person in front of him, somewhat surprised. Zaraki, why do you stay with the disasters? There was a hint of coldness in Kyōraku Shunsui's voice. If he remembers correctly, the guy named Sado Yasutora in the travel disaster was obviously sent to the 4th Division by him. Now are you also on the side of the disaster? 1. Zaraki Kenpachi put Zanpakutō in his hands on his shoulders and grinned. I don't care which side. My day is just fighting and fighting. Since you have appeared on the way I want to go forward, then I can only say sorry. With that said, Zaraki Kenpachi held Zanpakutō and pointed it at Kyōraku Shunsui. Come on, fight or die. Kyōraku Shunsui was a little speechless, and said in a low voice. Sure enough, Shimo's assessment of you is correct. A beast that acts entirely on instinct. At this time, shouldn't you explain to me why the travel disaster appeared by your side? Zaraki Kenpachi raised his brows and made an arrogant voice. What? I have to explain more, as long as you can fight. When the voice fell, he held Zanpakutō and swung at Kyōraku Shunsui. I just want to ask what happened to Shimo. When Kyōraku Shunsui saw Zaraki Kenpachi with Zaraki Kenpachi, he subconsciously thought that something happened to Shimo. That's why it was blocked in front of Zaraki Kenpachi. Originally, he just wanted to ask, but at this time he was dragged into the battle. What? The battle will tell you more. Zaraki Kenpachi, who has entered a fighting state, has a more flexible mind than usual, at least several times more flexible. He knew very well, if it was told to Kyōraku Shunsui, the opponent will inevitably pull away and leave the battlefield. It's just that, who should he go to fight with? So, let's talk about it first. The frantic slash fell on Kyōraku Shunsui's Zanpakutō, making a rhythmic sound of gold and iron crisscrossing. The Ryotsu impact of the two of them spreads far away. Advertisement on the way to Shuangchang Hill. Shimo, who is walking in front, has a sudden look on his face. My stupid Ogi-san, why did you fight with Zaraki? The gradually chaotic event has broken Shimo's inherent memory. He clearly distinguished that it was no longer possible to refer to it according to his original memory at this time. With the death of Tusen Kanami, the whole incident has undergone tremendous changes. Thinking of this, his footsteps became more stable. Double Touch Hill. When Shimo arrived here, he found that apart from the executioner, only a few captains had arrived. The first team, Yamamoto Genyanagisai Shigekuni and Chojiro Sasakib. 2nd Division, Smashing B and Omeda Marichio. The 7th Division, Sajin Hikumura and Tezamen on the shooting field. In addition, to Shimo's surprise, Aizen Yusuke also came to the execution scene of Shuangchang Hill. His gaze has been watching Hinamori Momo standing under the dish rack. In addition, the remaining captains who failed to arrive either had a fight on the road or were imprisoned for crimes. One of the typical examples is Hitsugaya Deshiro, the captain of the 10th Division. As the main actor in the previous robbery, his crimes were far more serious than the other two. Hitsugaya Deshiro broke into the Confession Palace, killed 39 jailers and took the forcible offenders from the Confession Palace. Such a provocation of Soul Society rules, before the follow-up judgment. He was already transferred to the prison of the 1st Division by Yamamoto Genryuze, and was guarded by Sanshi Okinawa Genshiro. In addition, because of Hisagi Shuahei's remarks, Ichimaru Jin, the captain of the 3rd Division, is also under surveillance at this moment and cannot leave the 3rd Division for the time being. As for the 840 captain of the 4th Division, he needs to be responsible for treating the wounded, and Shimo will temporarily replace him in the Xingguan ceremony. After Shimo arrived at the hill of Shuangchang, everyone's eyes were focused on him. The 4th Division Deputy Captain Kyōraku Shimo. The old voice rang from the hill of Shuangchang. Yamamoto Genryusai focused his attention on him. Why did you bring the former sinner to the hill of double powers together? The target of this remark is the black cat on Shimo's shoulder. Captain Yamamoto, don't speak so unrelentingly. The black cat said, what happened back then? Are you sure that the judgment of room 46 is correct? Following the rules of Soul Society, there is no problem. But when the problem arises, what about the rules themselves? Yamamoto Motoyanagi was silent for a while, his cane in his hand sank slightly, and he said solemnly. The old man does not think that Soul Society's rules have a problem. The behavior of you back then has trampled justice under your feet. The majestic momentum was released on the hill of Too Strong. Everyone felt their breathing was stagnant, and there was an illusion that they couldn't breathe. The title of Soul Society's strongest shinigami is not a mere name. The cat's paw was waving in the air. The face of the black cat has a humanized and perfunctory expression. All right. I came here this time just to find Broken B to recollect the past. After the torture is completed, I will naturally go to a team to accept the sentence. Yamamoto Genryusai's aura is like a blazing flame, intensifying. Captain Yamamoto, I guarantee her. Shimo's words suddenly stopped Yamamoto Genryusai's aura. In this case, the old man will not pursue this matter for the time being. For Shimo, the newly promoted deputy captain, Yamamoto Motonyujai still attaches great importance. The perfect execution of many missions, surpassing all the horror talents of the predecessors, the roots of the Soul Society. No matter from which point of view, Shimo will be the backbone of Soul Society in the future. With Shimo's guarantee, Yamamoto is naturally relatively safe. In addition to Yamamoto Genyunagi, the 2nd Division captain, Broken B, has always focused on the Black Cat. For Shihuan Yoruichi, her feelings are the most complicated. The Black Cat was also stared at the cat's fur upside down by its complicated gaze. Time passed, and soon it was time for execution. Yamamoto Motonyujai stepped forward, tapping his cane hard on the ground. Ready to liberate, double strength. Chapter 127 Everything is ashes. Advertisement. As his voice fell, the rope wrapped around the huge spear twisted and untied. Ryotsu from above burst out instantly. The huge spear fell forward without the restraint of the rope. Ryotsu, like a real substance, wanders around the spear, giving the people on the double-strong hill a great oppression. Hinamori Momo, standing on top of the dish rack, has an expression full of despair. The dish rack under his feet separates stones of the same size, suspended and fixes his limbs, and gradually lifts Hinamori Momo into the sky. Double-strong liberation. The golden phoenix stands proudly on the top of the sky in fear, with eyes without any emotional fluctuations, staring at Hinamori Momo high in the sky. Destroy the king. Yamamoto Genryusai's calm voice sounded. Double-touch spear reveals a true posture as the ultimate executor of the torture. When it penetrates the sinner, the torture is over. The captains focused their attention on the destroyer king. The golden wings spread out, covering the entire double-strong hill. The terrifying Ryotsu even surpasses the captain-level shinigami under normal conditions. Shimo emptied his eyes, observing the huge golden phoenix above his head, and said silently in his heart. This thing has the power of 1,000,000 Zanpakutō? He is very violent about this number, and thinks it may be just a fiction. Regardless of the strength of the Ryotsu released, the power at the time of execution, which can be blocked by Kurosaki Ichigo, is enough to prove that this is nothing but a lie. It is said that it is really said to be chanting. Shimo teased. Yamamoto Genyunagi heard the words, looked at Shimo with his eyes slightly, and coughed slightly. Ahem. It is irrelevant and powerful, and the double spear is a symbol of the laws of the Lingling court. Shimo nodded, agreeing. In the next moment, Yulingting's laws and regulations will be trampled underfoot. The King of Destruction issued a clear call. The flames all over his body were soaring, and his howling locked Hinamori Momo in the air. In the face of death, she could not be as calm as she had imagined. Despair occupies every part of its tongkong. Boom. At the moment when the Destroyer King was about to attack him, a handful of Zanpakutō reached him. A huge crackling sound burst into the air. Black, Ichigo. Everyone's eyes are full of unexpected colors. Who is this person? It was actually blocked. The double-strength liberation comparable to the destructive power of 1,000,000 Zanpakutō was actually resisted by a hand of Zanpakutō. Travel disaster? Sajin's voice is back to normal, thick and firm at the same time. Because you have exposed your looks in front of the captains. Now he has completely broken the jar. The true face of Sajin, the village of Tamari, adds a bit of majesty. Unexpectedly, there was a travel accident that really rushed here. Unfortunately, the power of the too-strong liberation is not something he can stop. Sajin Bomura didn't intend to make a move at this time. Because in front of him, Yamamoto Motoyanagi was watching the scene in front of him quietly. As a loyal supporter of Yamamoto Genryusai, Sajin Hikumura has always used his ideas as a program of action. The first attack was blocked. Raichao Wangchi flapped, his body retreated, and his sharp howling locked the two people on the tray again. Retreat. Prepare for the second attack. Kurosaki Ichigo has a solemn expression, holding Zanpakutō in both hands, ready to face the Destroyer King at any time. Millennium Ice Prison. A calm and icy voice resounded above the hill of Shuangchang. Stuck. Thick icicles fell from the sky and instantly enveloped King Rui. The huge golden phoenix was completely frozen directly and fixed above the sky. In the high sky, the clouds dispersed, and the figure of Hitsugaya Toshiro appeared here. Hitsugaya? A look of surprise appeared in Yamamoto's eyes, and he asked in a deep voice. How is Genshiro? Hitsugaya Toshiro gritted his teeth and forcibly blocked the power of the Destroyer King. Genshiro's 3 seats are fine, but I passed out. Upon hearing this, Yamamoto Genryusei nodded and said again. It seems that the old man will try to reduce the death penalty for you by then. Hitsugaya Toshiro looked sideways and yelled behind him. What are you doing in a daze? Advertisement, destroy the dish rack and take Hinamori away from here. His voice also awakened Kurosaki Ichigo. No recognition result. Although I haven't seen the death sleeve in front of me, judging from his actions, he and himself are on one side. Zanjetsu waved in his hand and sent out a powerful Ryotsu. The blue Ryotsu, like the sky, is bombarding the double-powered disc rack. Black Ichigo slashed down suddenly, and a loud noise erupted above the dish rack. 9 quantities penetrated, and instantly seduced the entire Shuangchang Hill. When Hinamori Momo was about to fall, another figure flew out from under the hill of Shuangting, and caught it. Kyōraku Shimo raised his mouth and smiled. It seems that the 3rd division has also fallen. The respective prison protection measures of Gode 13 are really useless. Kyōraku, who had enough brains, understood without saying hello. The most important thing at this moment is to stay away from Shuangziki. This is the most dangerous place in the entire Yuling Palace right now. Unforgivable. The old and heavy voice rang from the hill of Shuangchang. The aura on Yamamoto Genryujai's body also became more and more terrifying. It's time for Gode 13 to clean up. Seeing Hinamori Momo being taken away, Hitsugaya Dashiro also recovered his power. The Destroyer King has no target for execution, and it is restored to the form of a double-strength spear, falling from a high altitude. Boom! The huge spearhead pierced directly into the ground, creating a deep hole tens of meters wide. Kurosaki Ichigo and Hitsugaya Dashiro fell from a high altitude and stood opposite the captains. It's up to us to stop you. Hitsugaya Dashiro's tone was firm, with some injuries on his body, most likely caused when he was out of prison. Hey, what's your name? Kurosaki Ichigo still asks the person's name leisurely at this moment. Hitsugaya Dashiro expressed his gratitude for Kurosaki Ichigo's help. Ever since, he hesitated for a moment and still said, Shifen team, Hitsugaya Dashiro. At this time, he was very clear about his crime. Therefore, the title of the captain of the juvenile team was not mentioned. Hitsugaya Dashiro understands that after this matter is over, the trial in room 46 will be waiting for him. The best result is nothing more than being imprisoned in hell. The worst result, it is estimated that the person who will be tied to the double disc rack next moment is him. This world, Kurosaki Ichigo. Compared to Hitsugaya Dashiro's calmness, Kurosaki Ichigo seemed a little jumpy. 2 people, the time for reminiscence is over here. Omeda Marichio and Chojiro Sasaki stood in front of them. Destroy the torture, destroy the double-touch disc rack. The sin is unforgivable. In the next moment, the 2 of them are ready to liberate. Break him, 5-shaped head, through him, Yan Lingwan. At the moment when the liberation was completed, Hei Ichigo disappeared first and went straight to the 2 of them. The swift speed even exceeded the capture limit of their sight. Boom! The strong fist wind has bombarded Omeda Marichio's abdomen, and the huge impact directly turned it into a ground gourd, flying dozens of meters away. Upon seeing this, Chojiro Sasaki raised the Yanlingwan in his hand, and the purple thunder and lightning shone on the blade. Comment. Kurosaki Ichigo launches Shunpo at high speed and appears in front of Chojiro Sasaki. He was slightly low, with a violent uppercut, directly hitting Chojiro Sasaki's chin. Immediately, Chojiro Sasaki flew out directly. Seeing this scene, Shimo held his forehead speechlessly and shook his head. What a shame for the deputy captain. Even if you release water, it can't be so obvious, right? Happy. At this moment, Shimo noticed the sound of Zanpakutō being unsheathed next to him. Obviously after seeing this scene, Byakuya Kuchiki seems to have the urge to intervene in the fight. Shimo stopped him in time and said, "Da-bai, you go to the underground chamber now. Tell all the shinigami above the adjutant through the sky of what you have seen." Although somewhat confused, Kuchiki did not ask much. In his opinion, there is no need for him to worry too much about the Hill of Double Powers with Shimo. Advertisement. What's more, Yamamoto is here too. That's it. The deputy captains of the phalanx of Tamari village were knocked down, stood up. The farce ends here. Hitsugaya, are you still ready to fight to the end? Hearing this, Hitsugaya Toshiro showed a struggling look on his face, and immediately gritted his teeth. Sorry, Captain Tamari, I can't let you pass. The battle is on the verge of breaking out. The terrifying coercion covers the entire hill of Too Strong. Yamamoto Genryujai's expression was furious, and his walking stick slammed on the ground. Too foolish. It didn't pay attention to Lingting's rules at all. The broken bee on the side is also preparing to participate in the battle to defend the dignity of the stagnant court. Shimo rubbed the black cat on his shoulders and whispered. Now, let's settle your grievances. Stay away from the battlefield here, it may be more dangerous next here. Hearing this, the black cat rubbed his cheek, and immediately started Shunpo to jump to the shoulders of Broken Bee. Come with me, little Broken Bee. The voice of the black cat rang in his ears, you win against me, just leave it to you. Hearing that, the Broken Bee gritted his teeth, and when he was about to do it, the black cat had disappeared on his shoulder. Seeing the distant figure, she mobilized Shunpo to follow closely. Shimo looked around, it seemed that he was the only one who was idle. This time, Sajin Hikumura made Kamui, one person against 2 opponents at the captain level, and he didn't even fall behind at all. Of course, this is also related to the status of Hitsugaya Dashiro. He escaped from the first squad and has already consumed a lot. Some time ago, the Destruction King was frozen and consumed most of Ryotsu again. At this time, Hitsugaya Toshiro seemed a little weak. The overall state, which is slightly better than the normal deputy captain. Hiranmaru also exited the state of understanding, just maintaining the state of Shikai. Hitsugaya, leave the next battle to me. Kurosaki Ichigo persuaded, Captain, this big dog, I can handle it. Upon hearing this, Sajin roared into Mari village. The old man is not a dog, the huge armored fist slammed into Black Ichigo. Boom. The power of horror instantly hit it, for money, and flew hundreds of meters away. In a furious state, Sajin Bo village has exerted a 120% effect on his own power. Tisk, be amazed. Shimo sighed, Captain Bo village is as strong as ever. Yamamoto Genryuze looked at the battlefield and said in a deep voice. The old man doesn't want to watch this farce go on. He took a step forward, seemingly ready to intervene in the fight. But before he could do it, he suddenly realized that there was an extra figure in front of him. There was no fear in the calm smile. Kyōraku Shimo, deputy captain of the 4th Division, even you have to violate justice? A trace of anger flashed through Yamamoto's slightly opened eyes. The silver-white beard with a hanging waist tied by a purple band, fluttering slightly under the breeze. The old man will never give a forgiveness to someone who has missed justice. The white Captain Haori was dancing in the wind. Yamamoto Motonujai took it down and threw it on the ground at will. Captain Yamamoto. Shimo calmly said, actually, I think you are a little bit rotten. The powerful force blinded your eyes. Blindly pursuing wrong justice will only make justice farther and farther. Yamamoto Genryu Sai Shigekuni heard this, his expression was slightly stagnant, and said. I thought that you could become the backbone of the Ling Court in the future. But now it seems that the old man was really wrong. I saw him take off the death tyrant on his upper body, revealing Madara's body full of large and small scars. The walking stick in Yamamoto Genryu Sai's hand burned himself inside, revealing its original appearance. Take it, Kyōraku Shimo straight, everything is ashes. Ryujin Jaka. Chapter 128 Words of Justice, The Outbreak of Conspiracy. Advertisement. The hot air blows on your face at the moment of Yamamoto Shikai. The entire Twin Hill was suddenly covered by heat waves. Others were also affected by this. Captain Yamamoto, how about playing in another place? Shimo asked with a smile, there was no nervous expression on his face. Upon hearing this, Yamamoto Genryuze looked around and said in a deep voice. Do you have this mind? When the voice fell, he mobilized Shunpo to leave the hill of Double Strong. Shimo followed. The two soon came to a relatively remote place. The old man is very sad for the behavior of Chianru and so on. Why challenge the justice of the world? Yamamoto Genryusai was wearing a Death Tyrant costume, dancing with the wind, and his momentum was a bit weaker than before. Upon seeing this, Shimo knew in his heart that he still wanted to dissuade himself. Captain Yamamoto, what do you think the justice of the world is really justice? Before Yamamoto could answer, Shimo continued. The so-called world justice is nothing more than justice in the underground chamber of Lingting? Or in other words, what justice the 40 sages and 6 judges think? Hearing that, Yamamoto Genryuji's breathing was stagnant, and a trace of hesitation flashed on his firm expression. But you, after all, chose to stand on the opposite side of justice. Shimo raised his mouth and smiled, if the so-called justice is determined by others. Then this justice, it doesn't matter if you don't observe it. Boom. The terrifying Ryotsu burst into the open wilderness in an instant. Facing Yamamoto, Shinigami, the strongest soul society in 1,000 years. Shimo doesn't have the slightest idea of keeping his hands. At this moment, his Ryotsu was truly released completely. At this moment, the entire Yuling Ting felt this powerful Ryotsu. Countless Shinigami team members looked towards the sky. As if above the sky, another layer of sky has been added. The depressed breath enveloped everyone's heart, the 4th Division team house. Egg Huili stopped working and looked in the direction of Shuangchang Hill. On the calm and gentle face, a trace of worry 843 flashed rare. This is Shimo-kun's Ryotsu, on the streets of Yulingting. Kyōraku Shunsui and Zaraki Kenpachi, who were in battle, also stopped slashing Zanpakutō. Zaraki Kenpachi's rampant expression was somewhat frozen, and he whispered. Shimo, is this guy already so strong? And Kyōraku Shunsui's expression became extremely solemn. It's not just Shimo's Ryotsu, but the people who fight him. Is the old man mad? Why do you want to shoot Shimo? Kyōraku Shunsui dropped Zaraki Kenpachi, launched a high remonstrance step, and headed away in the direction of Shuangchang Hill. Seeing this, Zaraki Kenpachi hesitated for a moment and followed him. For the battle, he is still full of desire. As for Ishida Yulong and others, they looked at each other, a little confused. By the way, what shall we do now? Inoue Orihime asked with a distressed face. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses on the beam. Old-fashioned. Go to Shuangchu Hill. Ichigo must be there. Ever since, the group followed Zaraki Kenpachi and ran in the direction of Shuangchang Hill. Yamamoto Genryusai felt the powerful Ryotsu power that hit his face, and his calm face showed a rare expression of surprise. What a surprise, Kyōraku Shimo. Compared to your elder Shunsui, your talent seems more terrifying. Such a powerful Ryotsu. Speaking of this, Yamamoto Genryuji's eyes seemed to flash with a hint of enlightenment. Are you unwilling to listen to the justice of room 46 because of this? After hearing this, Shimo laughed and explained, Captain Yamamoto, I am not an unruly person. Advertisement, on the contrary, I personally agree with the rules. As for today's behavior, an appropriate explanation will inevitably be given later. Upon hearing this, Yamamoto Genryusai breathed out slowly, and brushed Ryujin Jaka's blade with his left hand. Able to burn flames on it. In that case, the old man must take you down via. Yamamoto Genryusai holding Ryujin Jaka across his head. The sky was anxious and the clouds disappeared. Zanpakutō, the strongest and oldest Zanpakutō in the hot system if there are few flowing blades. Formally in front of Shimo, shown off his pure fangs. Facing the impact of the heat, Shimo frowned slightly, and Ryotsu automatically covered his whole body, isolating the terrifying heat. Shimo clearly knew his heat resistance. It's better for Ryotsu to be isolated. It's really difficult for someone to resist by relying solely on himself. At this time, Shimo obviously also noticed his drawbacks. It seems that my defense is worse. So far, none of the opponents he has encountered has been able to break through his defense. But can Yamamoto Genryusai be on par with those so-called opponents? The two are not on the same level. As the strongest shinigami of Soul Society, Yamamoto is already standing in another dimension of strength. Still the space, sniff. Shimo suppressed his expression and gave Yamamoto Genryusai more respect. With the twisting power of nothingness, Kai was wrapped around the slender blade, with blood-red traces wandering in the center of Zanpakutō. The jet-black handle was tightly touched by Shimo. Compared with the previous post-liberation Na, the appearance has changed a little again. In this regard, Shimo guessed that it might have a great relationship with his Ryotsu. With the enhancement of Ryotsu, Zanpakutō is also undergoing silent changes. His own state is somewhat similar to the current Xiaobai. Very nice. Yamamoto Genryusai exclaimed, as expected of the most talented dead sleeve in 1,000 years. Hearing this, Shimo's eyes showed a hint of surprise. There is no need to look at the old man with that look. As someone who has witnessed the history of Soul Society, what the old man said still has some credibility. 1. Shimo smiled, thanks to Captain Yamamoto for the compliment. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Sai Shinsen stopped Shimo and said, the old man is just stating a fact. Let's start, let the old man see the true strength of this terrifying Ryotsu. Shimo is also not humble. If you let the first strike, then. Kendo. 2 breaks. The sword of horizontal cutting cuts through the sky and stagnates the space, reaching the point. Yamamoto Uenyinagi opened his eyes angrily, raised Ryujin Jaka in his hand with the fastest reaction, and the high temperature instantly wrapped around his body. Shimo's speed and attack power are beyond his expectations. Just, the dull sound of collision, like Hongjiang Dalu, vibrates. It even produced a powerful sound wave, which caused the surrounding area to burn due to the temperature of Ryujin Jaka's own temperature, and the grassland fire was instantly driven back. Use the old man's kendo to attack. On Yamamoto Geninagi's arms, the muscles burst out, and the feeling of pounding phosphorus is transmitted from Zanpakutō. What a bold young man. I saw that he held Ryujin Jaka with both hands, and the flames on it were soaring, using the same sword technique as Shimo. Kendo. 2 breaks, flames burned above the sword of panic, as if to split the sky. Space stagnation. Shimo directly activated his abilities, and the surrounding space instantly turned into a quagmire. The speed of the original swift sword move instantly slowed down. The power of sword moves also decreased accordingly. Yamamoto Motoyasasai raised his brows, and the Ryotsu on his body broke out again. Ryujin Jaka speeded up and went straight to Shimo's eyebrows. Kendo pays attention to a blast, and it stagnates for a while, which has greatly reduced the power of this type of sword. Shimo merely lifted Zanpakutō and held it against it. The posterity is terrifying, Yamamoto Genryusai praised. His hand was a little stronger. Because of this, there is no slack at all. Torch. The moment Ryujin Jaka lifted up, a tornado-like flame rose out of thin air above the ground, roaring in the sky. The people in the vicinity of Twin Hill saw this shocking scene. Kyōraku Shunsui's footsteps stopped slightly, looking in the direction of the flame tornado, and subconsciously muttered. The old man Sean is really crazy. Advertisement. The 2 figures walking through the woods also suddenly stopped. That's Captain Yamamoto's move. Shihouen Yoruichi has a solemn expression. The battle ends here. I'll go there and check the situation first. Broken Bee bit his lower lip lightly, a trace of worry flickered across his eyes, and said quickly. I will go there too. At the same time, a figure in the 4th Division also rushed out and pinched Shunpo's speed to ultimate on the street. There is a trace of inevitable chill in Eggflower Lie's eyes, staring at the Songming fire that traverses the sky and the earth. The tornado-shaped flame instantly swallowed Shimo in it. The terrifying range attack even made it too late to perform Shunpo evasion. Feeling the tornado flames rotating closer, Shimo's face showed a hint of wonder. It deserves to be the oldest and most powerful Zanpakutō in the heat system. If all this power erupts, there shouldn't be any problem with ruining the entire Wandering Palace, right? So proudly, Yamamoto Genryuze was scrupulous about the existence of Jingling Ting, and did not do his best. Otherwise, it is estimated that Shikai will be replaced by a solution. Unfortunately, it is because of your scruples. Shimo said calmly, this trick is of no use to me. Its voice came from the flames of the tornado. Yamamoto Genryuze was unmoved by this, but instead gave Shimo a fire again. The tornado flame spins at high speed, constantly tightening the space in it. Kendo Secret Snow. Under Yamamoto's surprised gaze, snow fell on the scorching sky. There is a rare hesitation in his tone. How can snowflakes appear in front of the liberated Ryujin Jaka? The doubts in Yamamoto's mind were quickly answered. When snowflakes fell on the Songming fire, a strand of flame was instantly split. When countless snowflakes fall, the fire of the Songming tornado that runs through the world will be ruthlessly divided. In an instant, the huge tornado flame disappeared from heaven and earth. It turned out to be the power of Kendo. A trace of enlightenment flashed in Yamamoto's eyes. It seems that the old man's evaluation of you should go to a higher level. Shimo walked out peacefully in the scattered flames. Captain Yamamoto is too acclaimed. For this reason, Kyōraku Shunsui and others are long overdue. However, they also saw the scene where Shimo's sword cut Song Ming, and their hearts were astonished. There are people who can match Captain Yamamoto in Shikai's state. Comparing the status of the two, there is no change at all. Old Mountain. Seeing Yamamoto Genryuze again mentioned Ryujin Jaka in his hand, Kyōraku Shunsui anxiously stopped. What did Shimo do wrong? It's worth your fight. Yamamoto Genryuze paused, and a deep voice sounded. Kyōraku Shimo prevented the old man from chasing down the offender and trampled justice to the ground. Needless to say, Shunsui, if you want to stop it, the old man won't mind. In front of everyone, Haki, the captain of Gode 13, is also revealed. Even in the face of you and others, the old man still has to carry out justice to the end. Obviously, he also knew people who rushed here the first time, but on Shimo's side. But this kind of behavior also made Yamamoto feel a little disappointed. Maybe the old man is really wrong. Why do almost everyone stand on the opposite of justice? The atmosphere is tense again, and the battle seems to be on the verge. At this moment, the Ryotsu net covered the entire Yulingting. Shimo moved in his heart and realized that this was Bakudo, number 77. The captain and deputy captain of Gode 13, I am Byakuya Kuchiki, captain of the 6th Division. There was a tremor in the cold voice. The matter is urgent. Next, what I said is the truth. Kuchiki's self-conscious state seems a bit wrong. Central 46 was all killed. The murderer is, Aizen suddenly Yusuke. Chapter 129 Value, Aizen's Invitation, Advertisement. Prior to this, on an unknown street in Yulingting, a figure rushed forward here, and there was a petite figure behind it. Kira Aizaru's goal is West Rukongai. Under the pursuit of the captain, there was no place for him in the Lingling court. Only by leaving this place can Hinamori Momo have a chance of life. Click. The sound of footsteps appeared in front of Kira Izuru, causing it to stop Shunpo abruptly. Seeing the figure suddenly appeared in front of him, Kira Izuru did not panic as he imagined. Captain Aizen. Hinamori Momo took the lead in making a surprise call. Facing Hinamori Momo, Aizen's familiar gentle smile appeared on his face. Like the warm sunshine of spring, warming the heart. Hinamori. Aizen smiled and asked, are you going to Baidaemon? Kira Izuru did not completely believe in Aizen at this time, although his appearance gave people a great sense of deception. Excuse me, is Captain Aizen here to stop us from leaving? Hearing this, Hinamori Momo's expression is also a bit nervous. How could be? Aizen smiled unchanged and explained. I just feel that it is too difficult to escape from the jingling court at your speed. He stretched out his right hand and made an invitation. Hinamori, come with me. I will take you away from Yulingting. Faced with Aizen's request, Hinamori Momo immediately fell into it. Without any hesitation, she walked directly to Aizen. Kira Izuru opened his mouth to keep, but he took a step. When Aizen reached Hinamori Momo's palm, a voice suddenly appeared behind him. Unhappy it is Captain Aizen. Kira Izuru looked at the people behind Aizen in horror. Team, Captain? Ichimaru Jin narrowed his eyes, looked at the opposite side, and said. Oh, when I think of Kira, you are there too? Kira Izuru couldn't hide the shock on his face, and asked. Aren't you supposed to be in prison for the 3rd Division? Ichimaru Jin laughed and said, oh, sorry, Kira. I have more important things to do. His arms were raised high, and the white cloth spun out of his hands, wrapping him, Aizen and Hinamori Momo in them. Goodbye, Kira. The next moment, the self-dissipation disappeared, and the three of them disappeared in front of Kira Izuru. Seeing this scene, Kira Izaru's pupils shrank suddenly and murmured. No recognition result. 1000 anti-white snake. I don't know why, when he saw this scene, a strong sense of ominousness emerged in his heart. As a Kido Grandmaster, Kira Izuru is naturally the function of the T-1000 anti-white snake. High-level surgical style 1000 anti-white snake, able to transfer the user to the preset coordinates. As for the location of the coordinates, Tien Ting Kongluo's message sent everyone an incredible expression. Are all the 46 rooms dead? What Yamamoto pays attention to is always the big picture. Kyoka Suigetsu, everyone seems to be kept in the dark. When Kyōraku Shunsui said this, his eyes drifted to Shimo from time to time. I don't know why, maybe it's instinct. He always feels that Shimo doesn't seem to be taken by the so-called Kyoka Suigetsu hypnosis. Captain, it seems that our battle cannot continue. The expression on Shimo's face is a bit regretful. Yamamoto Genryusai was silent and did not express his own opinion. The heart of the south, the pupil of the north, the fingertips of the west, and the toes of the east. Gather with the wind, take the rain and disperse. Broken has already started Bakudo on the side, Bakudo number 58, jump and chase birds. Under his palm, a black circular pattern appeared instantly. The effect of the toe-chasing bird is to be able to perceive the opponent's position through the technique. After a while, the broken bee was horrified and shouted. Shuangchang Hill, Aizen is now on the go of the double. After the words fell, Yamamoto Genryusai's figure disappeared first. The hill of Shuangchang is not so far away from here. If the captain used his full stride, he would be able to arrive in a few minutes. When other people saw this, they turned their attention to Shimo. Advertisement Shimo spread his hands and said helplessly. Look at what I'm doing. Go to Shuangchang Hill. Shattered Bee and Shihu and Yoriichi, one after another, left the place and rushed towards Twin Hill. As for Kyōraku Shunsui, he stayed where he was, with a strange expression on his face. Shimo, how many are there? Cough cough cough. Hearing that, Shimo almost never got killed on the spot by his own saliva. What's this call? What do you call a few? Room 46 died by mistake. Why is your focus so different? Kyōraku Shunsui's expression became more and more weird. There's another one. I'll go one step ahead. He cast Shunpo and disappeared in front of Shimo. As soon as his front foot walked, Yuno Hanaretsu's back foot came to Shimo's side. Shimo-kun, are you okay? Eggflower Lie's gentle voice rang in my ears. Shimo let out a sigh and smiled. Don't worry, the captain has a sense of measure. Eggflower Lie was worried in her heart, until she walked around Shimo and found that there was no injury. She was relieved. Shimo was a little dumbfounded and said, don't worry about me. The broken bee chanted that the toe chase has caught Aizen's location. Now I'm on the hill of double powers. Eggflower Lie nodded and looked in the direction of Shuangzioka. Then let's rush over. When the voice fell, the two figures disappeared in place. Double Touch Hill. Hinamori Momo, under the hands of Aizen, feels that both body and mind are enveloped by hope. Everything is so beautiful. However, after waiting for the white cloth beside her to fade, revealing the scene where she was, the icy feeling of eroding bones, like a heartworm, swallowed her heart bit by bit. She stared blankly, looked at Aizen blankly, and asked carefully. Captain Aizen, why are we here? Facing Hinamori Momo's problem, the smile on Aizen's face is still gentle and sunny. Because this is my plan. He raised his head and looked at the people who had already been fighting. Kurosaki Ichigo, Captain Hitsugaya, shoot the captain of the village. Meet again. A look of shock appeared on Sajin's face, and immediately turned into an expression of anger. Sinner Aizen. The roar echoed on the hill of Double Strong, echoing out of a very far range. Untie. Haisheng Tianyi Mingwang. A giant body appeared in front of Sajin Tamari village. Facing Aizen, he didn't have Silk Ting's hand. The king of Scourge, holding a huge Zanpakutō, slashed towards Aizen. In the face of the attack, Aizen's smile remained unchanged, and he didn't even dodge. Suzumushi 2-type red migratory locust. A calm voice appeared behind Sajin in Bo village. The swarming blades instantly pierced his body completely. Tamari village Sajin turned his head in shock and looked behind him. I saw a familiar figure, slowly retracting Zanpakutō from his waist. Tusen Sajin in Tamari village was severely wounded and dying, his tall body collapsed, and countless dust was thrown up. And Zanpakutō of King Qianzhong suddenly disappeared when he was less than half a meter away from Aizen. Aizen smiled and nodded, not surprised at his appearance. As he said before, everything is just his plan. Tusen Kanami said nothing, and walked to Aizen's side. Kurosaki Ichigo's shocked expression has completely occupied his face. Surprised. Kurosaki Ichigo? Aizen said with a smile. You know me? Black Ichigo was a little at a loss. You seem to be troubled. Aizen walked slowly to Hinamori Momo and said gently. From beginning to end, your actions are in my master. Including Urahara Kazuki's assistance to you, as well as the way to invade Yulingting. Although there have been a few uncontrollable changes, in general, the outcome is always good. He lowered his upper body and looked at Hinamori Momo. Isn't it, Hinamori? Aizen grabbed the neck ring on Hinamori Momo's neck and pulled it from the ground. Advertisement, to get the foreign body in Hinamori's soul. Seeking flowers. I have been preparing for a long time. Although it's not clear what happened, but Kurosaki Ichigo can be sure that the person in front of him named Aizen must be against Hinamori. He dragged his wounded body forcibly, ready to stand up and fight again. Pouting, severe pain came from his palm, blood gushing out like a fountain. A cry of pain came from Kurosaki Ichigo's mouth. It is forbidden to move. Ichimaru Jin put Zanpakutō in his hand through his right hand and fixed it on the ground. Although the double did not proceed normally, Aizen said calmly, but I still prepared the second method. The astral foreign body extraction technology is still Urahara Kazuki's invention. I saw him take out a vial from his arms. Before Kurosaki Ichigo can see clearly, there is a strong burst of Ryotsu around Aizen. His right hand was suddenly covered with countless small lines, like dead wood bark. Aizen and Hinamori Momo looked at each other. Hinamori Momo's body was trembling, and the smile in front of him was as gentle as before. However, she didn't feel any warmth, only the endless cold, swallowing her heart completely. Hinamori, you must be willing to dedicate everything to me, right? Faced with Aizen's problem, Hinamori Momo looked sluggish and his eyes were blank. Despair has completely occupied her world. Aizen, Captain. All of this is fake, right? Hinamori asked intermittently. Aizen said nothing. The patterned right palm directly penetrated Hinamori Momo's chest. A gem with blue-black light was taken out by him. It's amazing. Aizen looked at Hogyoku in his hand and threw Hinamori Momo on the ground. It turned out to be just such a small thing. He put Hogyoku in his arms casually, and looked at Hinamori Momo on the ground in surprise. Oh, is the soul intact? What a superb technique. Unfortunately, you are no longer useful. Aizen looked at Tsusankanami and said. Yes, kill her. Facing Aizen's order, Tsusankanami's expression remained unchanged, and Zanpakutō from his waist was pulled out, and he slashed towards Hinamori Momo without hesitation. Slap, blood splashed on Hinamori Momo's face. Winter, Toshiro. Aizen raised her brows, a bit unexpected. Unexpectedly, Captain Hitsugaya still has some spare energy. I somewhat ignored you. As soon as his voice fell, the weight of the double strength fell on several huge shares of pressure. Aizen, you have no way to escape. Shihuan Yoruichi and Shattered Bee took the lead and reached the double-strong hill, and at the same time, they pressed the blade of Aizen's neck with their hands. Facing the blade, Aizen's face didn't change at all. She was still calm. Shimo-kun. Instead, he cast his sights on the people who rushed over. Are you interested in joining us? As soon as this statement was made, everyone's expressions were shocked, and everyone's faces were filled with horror. Even Shimo was a little bit stunned, but immediately, he smiled. Thank you for your kind invitation. Unfortunately, I prefer the atmosphere on Yulingting's side. Hearing that, Aizen's face also showed the same smile. Sure enough, you know many things. From the beginning, I should have been more alert to you. Unfortunately, despite the timely remedy, it still allows you to intervene in the chess game. Shimo raised his brows slightly and asked, do you value me so much? Aizen shook his head and laughed. When I realized that Kyoku Suigetsu had no effect on you, I realized the seriousness of my mistake. Hearing this, Shimo's heart shuddered. Sure enough, is Tsusankanami's corpse specially prepared for me? When he noticed the abnormality on Tsusankanami's corpse, Shimo noticed something wrong. It should be a false existence, but it was replaced with a real corpse. If he hadn't gained the ability of the spirit barrier, maybe he would really think that Tsusankanami is dead, and wrongly judge the direction of certain things. Aizen's smile became more obvious. When did you have the illusion that I feel at ease about you? 0. Chapter 130. Aizen's attention, split the space and see. Advertisement, from the beginning to the end, I have never assured you. Aizen opened his hands, without the slightest sense of tension being held by a sharp blade. From the beginning of your fight with first generation's Vain Whiteness, I have already begun to doubt. Then Baragan's death confirmed my thoughts again. Shimo did not interrupt Aizen's narration, but chose to be a listener. He was actually very curious about Aizen's plan. With his intervention in the chess game, the overall situation has undergone tremendous changes. Then I crushed all the ants in the underground chamber. Aizen smiled inexplicably. I want to come. Should you have no guidance on doing this? Yamamoto Genryusai Ryotsu released. It seems that there is a trend of hands-on. Captain Yamamoto's temper is as hot as ever, just like your Zanpakutō. Shimo stepped forward and walked out of the crowd. Ryotsu, who lay across, cut off the conflict between the two. Then what? My original intention was to feign death, but it didn't happen. Your presence makes me feel like a carp in my throat. Aizen talked eloquently. Fortunately, after my research, I made a suitable corpse doll. The corpse you want, maybe even you can't tell it? Between words, full of confidence. Aizen is still very confident about his scientific research ability. In the required room, the clues of his death all point to Yin. The contradiction between the 9th Division and the 3rd Division has just begun. The entire August 4-3 travels in Lingting, full of suspicion and suspicion. Speaking of this, all conspiracies have been lifted off the veil, and they are violently violent in front of everyone. Until now, everyone present has already understood what happened these days. Your frankness is because you have realized that you have no retreat? Yamamoto Ryujin Jaka, who had been transformed into a walking stick, bombarded the ground. Ryotsu, the captain of the team, enveloped Schwanuka. It's over, Aizen. Kyōraku Shunsui walked forward and said in a deep voice. Has it ended? Aizen's eyes were calm, and he said calmly. I don't think so. On the contrary, the real confrontation has just begun. As soon as this remark came out, the expressions on everyone's faces were taken aback. Has reached this point, does Aizen still have the means to come back? When the faces of all the people showed upsets and arms, suddenly glared, to shrink. Shihuan Yoruichi, who switched to Aizen, was the first to notice something wrong. Go away, broken bee. As soon as the voice fell, the two figures disappeared beside Aizen in a very fast shunpo. Shimo seemed to be aware of it and looked up at the sky. During cultivation, a huge golden light beam fell from the sky. Aizen and others were instantly enveloped by a huge golden beam. At the same time, the blue and pure skies suddenly shattered. Like a curtain, it was torn apart. In the next moment, countless huge white claws stretched out from the broken place. Immediately, huge monsters with black bodies and white faces poked their heads out of them, making meaningless roars. What is that? Manos Grande. Except for Shimo, the face of the captain on the scene changed drastically. Here, how many Jillians are there? This picture, Shinigami near Schwanuka, can also be seen very clearly. The Shinigami, who were still rushing to Twin Hills, stopped their steps and looked at the sky in horror. In the huge black crack, the terrifying Manos Grande group made a terrifying roar, and the twisted mask gave a sense of confusion. At this time, a huge golden beam enveloped Aizen and others in it. The ground under the three people's feet suddenly shattered, floated, and gradually rose to the sky. Shihuan Yoruichi said with a solemn expression, they still escaped. The captains who were on the scene were in charge, but they realized this, but no one stood up. Because they are all aware that they can no longer organize Aizen's departure. These three huge golden beams are named negation. It is the technique used by Manos Grande to save his companions. Once enveloped by the light beam, the inside and outside of the light wall will form two isolated worlds that cannot be interfered at all. Today, no one can stop them from leaving. Aizen lowered his eyes, looking down at the crowd. Advertisement. Finally, his eyes stopped on Shimo. Facing Aizen's gaze, Shimo stared at him calmly, without much change in expression. I have to admit, Shimo. 1. Your appearance made me feel a little surprised at this rotten soul society. Unlike those stubborn people who stick to justice, your presence has injected new opportunities into the world. You are also the one that makes me feel the most troublesome. I look forward to our next meeting. Aizen's gaze was a bit complicated when he finished speaking. Yamamoto Genyanagi narrowed his gaze, looked at Aizen, and said solemnly. Mixed with the Manos Grande, have you completely fallen? Aizen. For this subordinate who has always been a gentle character, Yamamoto Genryusai still attaches great importance to it. But now, I find that everything is just a disguise. Captain Yamamoto, are you too proud? From the beginning, there was no one above the sky, not even a god. Aizen's expression regained his indifference. As he spoke, he took off his glasses. However, the window period for this heavenly throne is coming to an end. As he said, Aizen's hands were slightly hard, and the black-framed glasses shattered and dissipated. He stretched out his hand and wiped the dangling brown hair back. Indifferent and arrogant eyes looked at everyone condescendingly. From then on, I will stand on the top of the sky. When the voice fell, everyone's expressions were shocked. Only Shimo, still looking unchanged, looked at the sky faintly. Aizen slowly turned around and said calmly, Goodbye, Shinigami. Goodbye, Shimo-kun. I look forward to your surprise next time. Having said that, he slowly walked towards the darkness in the void. Surprise, Shimo said calmly, I can bring it now. I hope you are satisfied with this surprise. Split the space, hoof. Suddenly, Ryotsu, like an abyss, covered the entire Twin Hill. Click. Shimo's left thumb gently pushed the dart around his waist, and the sharp sword intent filled the staring blade. In the horror of everyone's eyes, the space in front of Shimo was like a glass that was hit hard, showing cobweb-like cracks. Click. The cracking sound resounded above the double-strong hill. Since you are dead in the eyes of others, then there is no need to live. Shimo's calm voice sounded. Hearing this, Aizen turned abruptly. A rare look of shock appeared on his calm and unwavering face. Tusen. Ichimaru Jin opened his eyes, his blue pupils were full of horror. Panting, the sound of the knife slashing into the flesh is constantly ringing in his ears. Splashes of blood burst out in the world of negation. In Tusen Kanami's expression, there was a dazed look. Severe pain came from around him. Blue, Lord Aizen. Click. Sniff fell into the scabbard, Reiatsu dissipated, and the double-strong hill returned to peace. However, at this moment, everyone's hearts were full of violent storms. Shock is like a tsunami, and endless waves are raised in their hearts. East, Tusen Kanami him. There was a tremor in the voice of the broken bee. The scene before her completely broke her cognition. In the high altitude, Tusen Kanami was covered with cuts and bruises, with countless bloodstains all over his body. Its Ryotsu is fading quickly, like the crumbling candlelight in the autumn wind. At this time, all the captains present could see that Tsusankanami's vitality was declining frantically. If it lasts for a while, it will dissipate completely. In other words, Shimo killed a captain with a single blow. Even more terrifying is that the two are still a world apart. Aizen, this surprise. Advertisement. Shimo's gaze was equally indifferent. Are you satisfied? In the face of provocation, how can Shimo be the kind of person who does not show up? What's more, Tsusankanami is also related to his check-in task. No matter how bad it is, the other party will still stand on his opposite enemy after all. Tsusankanami fell weakly to the rear, where Ryotsu completely faded. Here, the captain of the 9th Division, Tsusankanami is dead. Aizen lowered his eyes, was silent for a moment, and smiled. This surprise is indeed unexpected. I look forward to meeting in the future, Shimo-kun. When the voice fell, he turned around without any thoughts and stepped into the darkness. Ichimaru Jin hesitated for a while. His deep gaze stayed on Shimo for a long time, and immediately followed Aizen into the darkness. Tsusankanami's body fell on top of the rock floating in the air, and there was no sound. The Manos Grande's claws stretched out, dragged the stone into it, and retracted their huge bodies. The cracks in the sky began to close, and the dense souls gradually dissipated in the air. Until, the sky is intact again. Aizen's plan brought a heavy blow to the entire Yulingting. However, there is not much heavy atmosphere on the Hill of Double Power at this time. Everyone's expressions were a bit weird. They don't know how to evaluate Shimo's behavior anymore. It was shocking to kill the captain with one blow. But across the world, launching an attack is even more incomprehensible. Negation is so strong that even Yamamoto Genryuze can't break through. But here in Shimo, that negation doesn't seem to exist. After a long time, Kyōraku Shunsui slowly said, "It seems that all this has come to an end for the time being. The so-called temporary, everyone present understands it. The departure of Aizen and Ichimaru Jin is only part of their plan. Although there have been many follow-up omissions in this plan, the losses brought to Yulingting are also extremely huge. Regardless, the plan is still going on. The incident did not end there. Fortunately, it seems that Yulingting has temporarily calmed down. Soul Society, which has been devastated for a long time, has finally settled down." To dry Shimo, Kyōraku Shunsui cast his gaze on Shimo, whose expression is still calm, not knowing what to say. According to his position, he should actually be on Shimo's side. But at the same time, he is very curious about how Shimo broke through negation's restrictions. Not only him, but even other people 0.0 had the same doubts on their faces. It seems that he has long realized that this scene will appear in front of him. Shimo didn't hide it too much, and explained directly. "My Zanpakutō Shikai ability is to freeze space, but it's not all of me Shikai." Shimo raised Zanpakutō in his hand and gestured. Shikai's second ability is space cutting, which can also be called split space. The composition of the world is nothing more than the existence of different spaces. Although negation is far away from us, it is still within my reach. Having said that, Shimo shook his head and said with some regret. Unfortunately, Aizen's strength is much stronger than the normal captain. It can even be said that the two can no longer exist at the same level. Otherwise, the knife should have been on Aizen. Upon hearing this, shocked expressions once again appeared on everyone's faces. In one day today, they don't know how many times they have been shocked, and they always feel that the skin on their faces has been numb. Unimaginable. Kyōraku Shunsui shook his head. Even Shimo's Zanpakutō ability can break through the limits of the world. But across the world, the existence of the beheading captain level, in his opinion, is still a little out of promise. Fortunately, Shimo is not the enemy at this moment. Everyone present looked at Shimo. Everything was very complicated. How long did the deputy captain of the logistics team have such a strong combat effectiveness? Painting, unimaginable. Kyōraku Shunsui shook his head. Even Shimo's Zanpakutō ability can break through the limits of the world. But across the world, the existence of the beheading captain level, in his opinion, is still a little out of promise. Fortunately, Shimo is not the enemy. At this moment, everyone present looked at Shimo. Everything was very complicated. How long did the deputy captain of the logistics team have such a strong combat effectiveness? Chapter 131. The status quo of Yulingting. Rewards are issued. Advertisement. Aizen's plan brought great trauma to Yulingting. 2 captains defected and 1 captain dies. No matter from which point of view, Yulingting's loss is hard to make up. The entry and stop of the travel accident brought a huge number of wounded. The fighting power of Kurosaki Ichigo and others is extremely powerful for ordinary shinigami. Not to mention Kurosaki Ichigo, Sato Yasutora alone was able to defeat dozens of members of the 11th Division Shinigami in a few minutes. Only Shinigami, who is above the upper seat officer, can fight them head-on. This kind of strength also caused the comprehensive rescue center of the 4th Division to be overcrowded. Not only that, the captains are also seriously injured. The 1st Division, 2nd Division Lieutenants Chojiro Sasaki and Omeda Marichio were overturned by Kurosaki Ichigo with mediocre injuries. The 6th Division Lieutenant, Abarai Renji, because he challenged Kuchiki's self, although he had undergone a superficial treatment by Shimo, his solution was completely cut off and needed to be repaired by the Technical Development Bureau. Sajin, the leader of the 7th Division, was attacked by Tusen Kanami and lost consciousness completely. The 9th Lieutenant, Hisagi Shuhei, fought with Ichimaru Jin before, and was beaten to death by one of the gun's Seiyu. He is still under treatment. The captain of the 10th Division, Hitsugaya Toshiro, escaped from prison, froze and destroyed the king on the front, and defended Hinamori Momo with a killer move. The state is not much better than the previous two. The captain of the 11th Division, Zaraki Kenpachi, the 3rd officer Madarame Mikaku, and the 5th officer Sagawa Yu, who fought against the disaster Kurosaki Ichigo, was defeated by him, and his injuries have recovered a lot. The 12th squad captain Kuratsuchi Mayuri, the lieutenant Nien Meng, was defeated by the disaster Ishida Yuryu. The captain Kuratsuchi Mayuri was seriously injured and needs to be reshaped. The 3rd team was soy sauce during this incident. As for the reason, I am worried that all the chaos in this world will not be put down. The team members above the deputy captain and the seat officer are still stationed in the world at this moment. At a critical moment, his team leader, Jashiro Yukitaki, suffered a relapse of injury and was resting in Yugantang. 14. Shimo can only show sympathy for Jashiro Yukitaki's experience. In addition, there is one person who is much worse than the other players. The 5th Division Deputy Captain, Hinamori Momo. Aizen's series of operations almost broke it directly. At this moment, Hinamori Momo was completely drawn out of the backbone, and the whole person became lifeless. There is no expression in his eyes according to the judgment of professionals. She is no longer suitable to continue the post of deputy captain, or even the post of Shinigami team member. But his friends are still more worried about wrong being tuned. Such as Kira Izuru, Abarai Renji and others. However, after hearing the judgment of professionals, I can only choose to let Hinamori Momo temporarily remove his position as Shinigami and place him in the 4th Division's Comprehensive Rescue Center for retreat. As for when to recover, it all depends on her own will. Professionals are also unable to judge. For a time, the 4th Division became more overcrowded. At the same time, in Hueco Mundo, in the barren desert, the white cliffs and gorges rang and the wind and sand howled. A tall and vast palace, standing in the wind and sand. In the surrounding area, under the wood branches and gravel, tiny creatures search for food they might encounter, trying to survive. Void food is generally the soul, but the high-density spirit zone can also allow it to survive better. However, although the palace in the distance has a magnificent spirit of spirit, these imaginary things keep away from it, and they don't dare to approach it at all. Shu Yi Palace. Inside the palace, there are 3 people staying here. Ichimaru Jin stood below, with a calm expression on his face, and beside his feet, was Tusen Kanami's already somewhat broken body. As for the throne in the middle, Aizen sat on it indifferently. Yin, what do you think of Shimo-kun? The silent atmosphere was suddenly broken. Faced with Aizen's question, Ichimaru Jin was silent for a moment, and said, "Very strong. It's so strong that I have an irresistible fear of this." Hearing this, Aizen retracted his gaze and looked down at Tusen Kanami on the ground. Your evaluation is very pertinent. It's not discussing but ignoring other issues. Advertisement. A surprised look appeared on Ichimaru Jin's face and asked, "Is there anything more important than its strength?" 1. Faced with his problem, Aizen quietly said softly, "As I said before, the strongest aspect of Shimo-kun is still its potential. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Saijukoku, as the strongest Shinigami in Soul Society's history, can be seen in Madara. However, Shimo-kun is the Shinigami with the strongest potential in Soul Society's history." Hearing that, Ichimaru Jin's face was shocked. "Master Aizen, have you compared Shimo-kun and Captain Yamamoto together?" Aizen chuckled and explained, "It's not that I compare him with Yamamoto Genryusai. It's that the level of threat is far greater than that of Yamamoto Genryusai. In the Soul Society, in the Lingting Pavilion, when all the wounded were saved to the 4th Squad, Inauguration and Katetsu Izan were once again engaged in their busy work. In addition, what surprised Shimo was that Shiba Sorasuru was able to integrate well into the life of the 4th Division. After being praised by positive work evaluations for many times in a row, Shiba Sorasuru was also promoted to the 4th official position by Ova no Hanaretsu, second only to Katetsu Izan. Not only that, the relationship between the two is also much relaxed than before. Go to the free meeting time when Bokong often does work, go to the captain's team house, and exchange experience on Kaido. As for the deputy captain of the 4th Division in a prominent position, he is completely free. Shimo thought that there would be a short relaxing holiday for some time in the future. But Kyōraku Shunsui's visit broke this expectation. The 4th Squad, the 6th Squad House. Shimo looked helplessly at Kyōraku Shunsui and eyes Naneo, and sighed. "By the way, is Captain Yamamoto so anxious? I don't think it's time to implement decisions so quickly." Kyōraku Shunsui, who is sitting across from him, has the same expression as Shimo, and he is full of helplessness. "Actually, I think so too. But old man Sean passed the order to me, and I can't help it." In addition to the captain's appointment, there is also the reappointment of Central 46. The Kyōraku family, as a superior nobleman, is naturally involved in it. Hearing that, Shimo's eyes flickered, with a somewhat inexplicable meaning. He naturally knew what Kyōraku Shunsui said. The death of all members of Central 46 means that Soul Society's judicial system has directly collapsed. It is not a simple matter to reselect 40 sages and 6 judges from Soul Society. This involves a lot of selection, competition, interest and so on. Not only the upper-class nobles, but even the lower-class nobles have to be involved. Before the selection of Central 46, there is a team leader for the time being in all rulings in Soul Society. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Sai Shigekuni is in full charge. Regarding this, all the members of Gode 13 have no opinion. After all, in this post-war moment, one person still needs to stand up and lead the overall situation. Except for the powerful man, Captain Yamamoto, there is no more suitable candidate. Seeing Shimo not speaking, Kyōraku Shunsui continued. At the moment, the 3rd, 5th, and 9th teams all have no captains. 5th of the teams are terrible, and they don't even have a deputy captain. The meaning of Old Man Shan is also very simple. Hearing this, Shimo interjected calmly. Want me to pick one from these 3 teams and go to be the captain? A surprised look appeared on Kyōraku Shunsui's face, and he subconsciously said. How did you know? Shimo picked up the luhanju on the table and drank it all in one go. Does this still need to be thought of? Since I showed some strength in Schwangnuka, Captain Yamamoto has always looked at me with something wrong. What's more, the existing Captain Yulingding is empty, and there is an urgent need for a new captain to join Qian. Advertisement, among the remaining deputy captains, the one who is most qualified to be the captain can only be me, right? Kyōraku Shunsui wanted to refute Shimo's self-proclaimed boast. However, when he recollected it for himself, he discovered that what Shimo said was actually the truth. Ahem, it is true. In desperation, Kyōraku Shunsui could only cover up his embarrassment with a cough. My words have been brought. Shimo, you better think about it. The old man Shan had the idea of letting you be the captain of the 10th division, but he was resigned. This time, you can no longer think of some unreliable reasons to refuse. Before leaving, Kyōraku Shunsui asked again. This time, old man Shan's attitude is very firm. Aizen collected the wine from the 8th division team house. After putting it down, he left with Kyōraku Shunsui. On the way, Kyōraku Shunsui's complaints were vaguely heard. The Kyōraku family seems to be very persistent when it comes to dry wine. After the two left, Shimo closed the door and sat back on the futon, thinking quietly. He was not surprised by Yamamoto's decision. Since he showed his strength, it has been inevitable. As for the selection of the squad, Shimo made a judgment of interest based on the respective positions of the 3 squads. As a support team, the 3rd squadron is responsible for supporting the team affairs of all squads except for the 4th squad when manpower is needed, and supplementing the casualties of other squads in combat. As for the 5th division as a rescue team, some tasks need to be carried out with the 4th division. The mission of the 9th division is to guard the Yuling Ting, and to be responsible for the compilation and distribution of Jingling Ting's communications. Among them, Kyōraku Shunsui's long romance novel, The Rose-Colored Path, is sold here. As far as 843 Shimo knows, his works have a wide audience in the entire Yulingding. Not only Gote 13, but even the nobles are very respected. Shimo didn't think too much, and directly set the goal for the 3rd division. The reason is also very simple, the 3rd division is free enough. As a support team, you can go to other teams or some specific places to support at any time. In this way, if he encounters a check-in task at a certain location, he can use the authority to go directly. Although the current Jingling Ting, no one would talk too much about his whereabouts. After confirming his future appointment, Shimo set his sights on the system interface. For the rewards for the previous check-in task, he has been looking forward to it for a long time. Check-in task completed, task rewards are being issued. Congratulations to the host for getting Ryotsu. The mechanical sound fell. Shimo felt that his own transformation had begun. If the original Ryotsu was just gaseous, then the current Ryotsu has been transformed into a solid state, and its essence has changed. The huge amount of pressure is constantly shrinking. However, in Shimo's perception, his strength is slowly increasing. It's like climbing a ladder, each level can bring a steady improvement to Shimo. More importantly, he can feel the changes in his soul. Just like the feeling when the soul broke through before, Ryotsu has also changed in essence. Are the steps necessary to break through the Shinigami dimension? Ryotsu is compressed bit by bit, and the transformed form reappears in Shimo's body. This step lasted for half an hour. During this period, Shimo has been trying his best to control his Ryotsu so that it will not affect us outside the team house. But even so, Kashima Yusuke, who was in charge of guarding the 6th team building, also felt the feeling of oppression like a galaxy. He looked inside the team house with a little fear. He was 100% sure that this was the result of Shimo. But he is very loyal to Shimo and still sticks to his post. Half an hour later Ryotsu was taken away, and Yusuke Kashima was sitting directly on the ground, his clothes soaked in cold sweat. One can imagine the terrifying pressure it has endured. Shimo felt the change in his own strength, and a light flashed in his eyes. It's time to try the 100,000 level ladder of time. Chapter 132 100,000 Time Ladders. As the captain. Advertisement. He had been thinking about the 100,000th floor ladder of time for a long time. As early as when he gained the ability of the spirit barrier, he wanted to try to break through this time ladder. It is a pity that the ability of the common soul barrier is not enough to help it break through. But now it's different. The qualitative changes that Ryotsu brought to its Ryotsu made Shimo full of confidence. Remove Zanpakutō from the meeting room and place it on his legs. Shimo entered the Zanpakutō space very easily. When he felt that the sound was out of the way, the scene in Zanpakutō's space has changed greatly this time. In the originally blank area, various complicated clocks and watches emerge. The ticking sound resounded in my ears from time to time. On the ladder of time, there hasn't been much change. Just around it, countless fragmented spaces have been added. The darkness of nothingness is hidden in the cracks of space, giving people a shuddering feeling. And many more at this moment. Shiji finally realized that the biggest problem was. How did I go back to the first floor? The voice of grief and anger spread far away in the Zanpakutō space. Although he was very dissatisfied with this, Shimo had nothing to do. I can only climb up again on the ladder of time. Compared with the first time I climbed the ladder, this time the climb is particularly easy. 1, 2, 3 10 floors, 100 floors, 1,000 floors. 70,000 floors, 80,000 floors, 90,000 floors. Since climbing to the 90,000 floor, Shimo has felt a little pressure. Although this does not have much influence, it also made him solemn. The closer he gets to his previous end, the pressure becomes more terrifying. 99,999 floors. A trace of tension flashed in Shimo's eyes, as for reaching the previous end, but the pressure has returned to the body. Compared to the initial state, he was already a bit tired. The burning will in his eyes promoted Shimo to take his first step towards the 100,000th floor. Boom! The pressure as if the world collapsed suddenly fell on Shimo. He sprinted under his feet and almost fell on the ladder of time. In the eyes, nose, mouth and other orifices, the blood gurgled down like a stream, making Shimo's whole person look very frightened. Shimo gritted his teeth, all Ryotsu violent, and the blue veins on his forehead jumped suddenly, indicating that he had already used his strength to the ultimate. With a strong will, Shimo finally got his first foot on the 100,000th level ladder of time. All beginnings are hard. With the first step, the rest is not so difficult. Shimo maintained this posture with a slight bow, with one foot on the 100,000th level ladder of time, and one foot below, for a long time. Until his own state has recovered, the other foot is also shaking from below, lifting it upwards. Click. The left foot finally stood on the 100,000th step. At this point, Shimo finally reached the 100,000th step. Boom. The oppressive force, several times stronger than before, descended on Shimo's soul. Blood spurted from Shimo's mouth at a more violent speed, as if the internal organs were crushed. The pores all over the body were oozing blood red. The whole person looked quite embarrassed. However, Shimo's expression did not become ugly. On the contrary, the corners of his mouth looked slightly, although he looked embarrassed, but his smile came from the heart. Foot. Enough. This thought just popped up in his mind because he left the Zanpakutō space because of exhaustion. The exhaustion of Ryotsu and the power above the soul caused Shimo's eyes to go black and he passed out in a coma. Don't know how long it took when Shimo wakes up again. What is seen in front of him is a gentle face with deep worry in his brows, watching him with concern. Shimo-kun, you finally woke up. In the gentle tone, there was a hint of surprise that could not be concealed. As the state returned, Shimo finally realized his situation at this moment. Advertisement Ryotsu was fully restored, and his soul power was also fully restored. And also won Zanpakutō's third place. Wait, why is the back of my head so soft? Why is there still a faint fragrance in between? Shimo's eyes suddenly widened, looking at the familiar face in front of him. Wa, sister Wa, you are. Hana Retsu saw that Shimo was no longer in serious trouble, and the corners of her mouth rose and explained. Last night, a powerful Ryotsu burst out of your room. After maintaining it for a while, it disappeared immediately. Kashimosuke came to check, but found that you were lying unconscious on the tatami. Later after his report, I came to your team house. After testing, it is found that your body has entered a self-protective coma due to excessive consumption of Ryotsu. Ko Zaihua Liehu, I talked about how she treated the timing device. However, as Shimo regained his consciousness, he has realized what kind of state he is lying in at this time. Hana Retsu's head is slightly lowered, looking at him tenderly. The undulating curve is faintly visible in front of Shimo's eyes, and the touch comes from behind his head. If nothing else, he should be resting on Hana Retsu's lap at this moment. Looking at Hana Retsu's face, I don't seem to care about it at all. Is this a surprise? Shimo didn't know, he just understood that it was enough to enjoy the moment before him. Just take advantage of his spare time to reflect on the more memories in my mind. When he climbed the 100,000th floor of the ladder of time, Shimo gained Shikai's new ability. Through Vientiane, the line of time, the power of liberating the eyes, the timeline of observing all things, the timeline can be cut or modified through the consumption of Ryotsu. Jifangyu, which is different from the previous ability, although it is still a Shikai type, it appears to be extremely maverick. So far, Shimo's Zanpakutō liberation language has been as many as 5. Although the ability to use space is the most used, the ability of time is still its biggest hole card. Those enemies that are stronger are all dead under the power of time. For example, the second Espada Buragan, the fifth Espada Neutra. Although Tusen Konami is not inferior to them, in view of the special circumstances at the time, Shimo still chose the ability of space cutting. Separated from a world, using abilities to kill each other is extremely costly for Shimo. No matter what, the ending is always good. Tusen Konami used his life in exchange for Shimo's qualitative changes in Ryotsu and new Shikai abilities. However, Shimo has a hunch that the reason why the 100,000th level ladder of time places such high demands on him may have a lot to do with the consumption of timeline ability. All abilities, based on Ryotsu, before completely escaping from Shinigami, Ryotsu was the root. Shimo-kun. Are you thinking about something? A gentle voice came from above. Shimo's thinking stopped for a while, and immediately replied. Nothing. It's just that it's troublesome for Sister Wa this time. When I was practicing last night, there was only a small problem. Hearing this, Yunohana Retsu showed a gentle and peaceful smile on her face, comforting. Take care of you, this is what I should do, boom. Shimo felt his heart as if it had been pierced by some kind of arrow. Is this how Yunohana Retsu expresses it? No one can stand it. 3 days later, the first team building, in the conference room. But Shinigami, who can stand up and above the adjutant, comes here. This meeting was supposed to have been held 3 days ago, but due to Shimo's emergencies, the meeting was postponed. In fact, Shimo was completely restored that day. But he was obsessed with the care of the egg flower, unable to extricate himself, did not want to come to participate in the so-called captain meeting. If it's not for some unscrupulous old guy, go to the 4th division twice and call for someone. Shimo would never come. In the center of the semi-dry meeting room of Yamamoto Motonujai, Shojiro Sasaki is standing on his right. On both sides, the captains of the teams stand scattered in 2 rows. Advertisement next to each captain, there is his adjutant following. For those who do not have a captain, they will be replaced by a deputy captain for the time being. As for the 5th division, which does not even have a deputy captain, there are temporarily 3 seats standing where they should stand. Sajiro Yamashita lowered his head tremblingly, not even daring to look more. He dared not violate the captain's order to convene a meeting. But as a temporary acting captain, coming to participate in the captain meeting is really a devastation to his little heart. On the right-hand side is the 4th division Captain Ovacare, but it's nothing. Among the many captains, Eggflower Lai has the most gentle personality. But the adjutant next to her, Kyōraku Shimo, is said to be a ruthless man. Not long ago, the former 9th Division Captain Tusen Konami was hacked to death. When this news spread among the stagnant palace, countless team members were shocked and unbelievable. They can't understand a deputy captain actually beheaded a captain? And the so-called captain is still the kind who can't fight back. However, after contacting Shimo's previous record, the team members suddenly felt that they did not seem to accept it. After all, a man who can defeat the captain of the 11th Division in a head-on fight can do anything. Standing next to such a fierce man really made Sajiro Yamashita a little frightened. On the left-hand side, it is the captain of the 6th Division, Kuchiki. The indifferent and cold expression, as if the whole world owes him money, not a character to provoke. As for his adjutant Abarai Renji, he looks even more vicious. Sakujiro Yamashita wanted to cry without tears, so he could only lower his head and try not to let them notice him. Shimo looked at the meeting room. Takashiro appeared in the meeting room insightfully. He apologized for not being able to participate in the battle some time ago. Even the current Jishiro Yukitaki has an apologetic smile on his face when he looks at other people. In addition, the expressions of Kira Izuru and Hitsugaya Dashiro are not much better. As far as Shimo knows, Hinamori Momo is still in the 4th division at this time, in extremely poor form. The whole person seems to be self-enclosed, and can't even communicate. The Aizen incident hit him far beyond ordinary people's imagination. But Shimo didn't bother to take care of these things and let them toss. Broken. The dull sound of the cane tapping on the ground attracted everyone's attention. Everyone. Yamamoto's calm voice sounded in the meeting room. Not long ago, there was a big change in Soul Society. Aizen Moyasuke rebelled against Soul Society and caused unimaginable losses. The captain's position is vacant and needs to be replenished urgently. The slightly closed eyes glanced past everyone. Do you have any recommendations? When the voice fell, Kyōraku Shunsui stepped forward and coughed softly. Ahem. Old man, I think Kyōraku Shimo, the deputy captain of the 4th division, can be the captain. After all, he quickly returned to his position, feeling quite guilty. Well, Kyōraku Shimo can indeed be the captain. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded and agreed with him. Shimo doesn't need to look at it. The acting skills of the 2 masters and apprentices are really bad. This matter has already been decided in advance, but it is just a cutscene. What do others have to say? Yamamoto Genryusai looked around at the captains. Shimo's popularity in the Lingting Palace is still quite good. Although a certain big dog looked at his expression and was very upset, he did not make any objection suggestions. Except for the 359th squad, all members passed and recognized Shimo as the captain. As for the specific procedures, recommendations need to be made after the meeting. Shimo doesn't need to worry about these things. Yamamoto Genryuze will help him take care of everything. Special time. Then next Mao. Yamamoto Genryuse's Nico gradually became serious, staring at the crowd, and said in a deep voice. It's about the selection of Central 46, Chapter 133 46 Room Voting Rights, Kuretsuchi Mayuri's want to change. Advertisement Central 46 is the supreme judicial organ of Soul Society, and the Master has the power to decide everything. Regardless of whether Shinigami is in this world or in the Soul Society, the sins committed will be judged by Central 46. If it is ruled that force is required, the secret message tunnel will be passed, and secret orders will be issued to the 13th Division or other enforcement forces with secret order tokens. Shimo has received relevant secret orders, but the secret order tokens should have been forged by Aizen. At that time Aizen went to the world with him to capture Hinamori Momo. It is estimated that he wanted to test him more. As for whether Aizen's idea has been achieved, Shimo is unclear. Time to return to the lake is not the disguise ability of Zaime, its power is reflected in other aspects. Shimo was immune to Kyōraku Suigetsu, but at the same time he could not pretend that he was not affected by Kyōraku Suigetsu. He had speculated that Aizen might have tested him many times, and after discovering that Kyōraku Suigetsu was ineffective, he launched a new plan. The topic returned to Central 46. Even Yamamoto Genryuze must not object to the judgment issued by Gon Central 46. To a certain extent, this so-called judicial organization gives people an extremely rigid and selfish feeling. Not to mention Shimo, even the other Shinigami in Soul Society have great opinions on this. They just maintain the listening on the dry surface. Now, all members of Central 46 have been killed by Aizen. Just 2 days ago, the corpse had just been disposed of. The immediate task is urgent, is to select the new Central 46 Cheng Hang. Regarding this, everyone here has no intention at all. In the history of Soul Society, there has never been a record of a captain being promoted to Room 46. However, this does not mean that the captain cannot interfere in this selection. Central 46 contains 40 sages and 6 judges. These people were selected from the entire Soul Society, including members of the major nobles, other law enforcement team members, and even the well-known Liushin among Rukongai. Of course, the last one belongs to a very small number. Crazy nobles don't want 847 to have the soul to be above their heads. It's better to have the master in your own hands for things like power. Yamamoto Genryusai inspected the changes in the expressions on the faces of the people, and found that when no one cared, it was inevitable to be a little angry. The purpose of this meeting is not for Shimo to be the captain. This matter has long since been agreed, and the captain still in office will not raise any objections at all. Therefore, the main purpose is to select 46 rooms. Everyone, the selection of room 46 is not a trifle. There is a lot of involvement, and I hope you can pay attention to it. As soon as the voice fell, before others could think, a grumpy voice came from the captain. Old man, does this so-called selection have anything to do with fighting? The speaker is Zaraki Kenpachi of the 11th Division. At this time, he was covered with bandages all over his body, and his fierce momentum was slightly attenuated. But everyone who knows him knows it well. This guy is actually more dangerous when he is injured. Just like a wild beast, it is more brutal under the stimulation of the smell of blood. Facing his problem, Yamamoto Genryuze was speechless for a while. Is this really a normal person's problem? In selecting the highest judicial organs, do you ask me whether it has anything to do with fighting? Anyone who doesn't have a crooked mind can't ask such a thing, right? Central 46 contains 40 sages and 6 judges. These people were selected from the entire Soul Society, including members of the major nobles, other law enforcement team members, and even the well-known Liushin among Rukongai. Of course, the last one belongs to a very small number. Crazy nobles don't want 847 to have the soul to be above their heads. It's better to have the master in your own hands for things like power. Yamamoto Genryusai inspected the changes in the expressions on the faces of the people, and found that when no one cared, it was inevitable that he was a little angry. The purpose of this meeting is not for Shimo to be the captain. This matter has long since been agreed, and the captain still in office will not raise any objections at all. Therefore, the main purpose is to select 46 rooms. Everyone, the selection of room 46 is not a trifle. There is a lot of involvement, and I hope you can pay attention to it. As soon as the voice fell, before others could think, a grumpy voice came from the captain. Old man, does this so-called selection have anything to do with fighting? The speaker is Zaraki Kenpachi of the 11th Division. At this time, he was covered with bandages all over his body, and his fierce momentum was slightly attenuated. But everyone who knows him knows it well. This guy is actually more dangerous when he is injured. Just like a wild beast, it is more brutal under the stimulation of the smell of blood. Facing his problem, Yamamoto Genryuze was speechless for a while. Is this really a normal person's problem? In selecting the highest judicial organs, do you ask me whether it has anything to do with fighting? Anyone who doesn't have a crooked mind can't ask such a thing, right? With a reprimand, when Yamamoto Yuan Liuyan looked at Kenpachi's perfunctory expression, Zhang Ran didn't know how to say it. As the most special captain in Gode 13, Zaraki Kenpachi is more like a time bomb most of the time. It has nothing to do with battle. Yamamoto Genryusai thought a little and said in a deep voice. Advertisement, oh, if this is the case, then I will leave first. Zaraki Kenpachi fully expressed his disdain. Goodbye everyone. The active voice came from the back of Zaraki Kenpachi. Kusajishi Yachiru lay on his back and waved at the crowd. Zaraki Kenpachi, every captain and lieutenant has the responsibility of voting. If you leave, please choose a captain to perform your due duties. Yamamoto Motoyanagi's tone revealed a hint of irresistibility. The leaving figure of Zaraki Kenpachi suddenly paused. Then give it to Shimo. After all, he left without looking back. Hearing that, Shimo has a strange expression. Why did you push an FK on me all of a sudden? I have no idea about the selection of these 46 rooms. That thing is not as good as a mascot. After the Aizen incident, the credibility of Central 46 was greatly reduced, not a little bit worse than before. After all, it's better to have a fist. Kyōraku Shimo, since Zaraki Kenpachi said so. So from now on, you have 3 votes, Yamamoto said in a deep voice. Shimo's eyes flickered and nodded. In fact, Shimo has more than just 3 voting rights. As a member of the Kyōraku family and the next successor to the patriarch, Shimo also has the right to vote once. In this way, Shimo seemed to have 4 votes in his hands, becoming the captain with the most authority among the people present. Thinking of this, Kyōraku Shunsui's expression is unavoidable. The power of 4 votes can almost create a sage. There are not many people who have the right to vote in the lingering court. In addition to Gode 13, there are other execution troops such as Kido, and a few nobles have this authority. Right now, Shimo alone has 4 votes, directly breaking the balance. Facing everyone's gaze, Shimo blinked. Now, I don't want this situation either. He looked innocent. Why don't I bring Zaraki and Yachiryu back? Hearing that, Yamamoto Yuan Luze stopped the Dao. For the time being, Yuan Ting can no longer withstand more devastation. Obviously he knew that if Shimo called Zaraki Kenpachi back, there would be a battle. At that time, Yu Lingting, which had just entered maintenance, would have to start again. This situation inevitably makes Yamamoto Motoyagi a bit of a headache. Even as the captain of Gode 13, he only has the right to vote once. Shimo alone completely broke the balance. The next situation can already be imagined. Anyone who has the qualifications for the 46-room selection will inevitably come to visit Shimo and woo Shimo. In this case, this information can only be kept secret for the time being. Thinking of this, Yamamoto Genryusai continued. This time the selection of Central 46, a total of 100 people participated. They come from the major nobles, the 3 major executive forces, Rukongai, etc. Following its narration, Chojiro Sasaki passed the paper with the name on it to the hands of the captains. It contains the names of all the candidates. I hope you can consider it carefully. A dazzling flame flashed in Yamamoto's slightly narrowed eyes. The meeting is over. The other captains left one after another, and the previous, Bia, incident brought a lot of work to the major teams. As the captain, it is natural to go back and deal with it. When Shimo was also about to leave, he was suddenly yelled by Yamamoto Genryusai. Kyōraku Shimo, please wait a moment. Shimo frowned upon hearing this. What surprised him was that Yamamoto Genryusei actually said such kind words to him. The steps that were already taken are taken back again. Shimo turned around, looked at Yamamoto Genyanagi, and asked. Excuse me, what's the matter with the captain? Yamamoto Uenyanagi was silent a little and said. I want to hear your thoughts on your choice of the squad. As early as 2 days ago, Shimo told Kyōraku Shunsui of his choice. Come to think of it, Yamamoto Genryusei has already learned Shimo's thoughts from his mouth. For Shimo's choice of the 3rd division, Yamamoto Motonujai obviously wanted to know why. It's very simple, Shimo explained. The 3rd division is free enough. As a support squad, the team members can go to various squads or other places according to their tasks. Advertisement, as the captain, it's no exception. If the team members have problems that can't be solved, isn't it my turn to play? Yamamoto Genryusei nodded. This is indeed a suitable reason. But this is somewhat different from what he expected. In fact, the old man wants you to be the captain of the 5th division. After all, in the 5th division, even a deputy captain cannot be selected. Hearing this, Shimo scratched his head with a helpless expression. Forgive me, captain. My work in the 4th division, don't you know it? If it weren't for Kira's ability to work, I wouldn't choose the 3rd division. Broken. One Yuan Lu Jai Qianzhang's walking stick made a sound on the ground. In your eyes, the captain's job is so unbearable? Shimo raised his head and put his fingers on his chin in a thinking state. I can't say that. Feng Yaohui is related to my character. Some tedious things, I really have no patience to deal with. For this statement, Yamamoto Genryusai is also unable to condemn. Shimo is the hero of the Aizen incident, although in some things, his behavior and way of thinking are quite strange. But in the end, Shimo helped Yu Lingting get back a little face. The death of the traitor Tusen Kanami was enough to deter the unruly minds of some people in the stagnant palace. At the same time, he was also surprised at Shimo's strength. Beheading a captain across the world of negation, even he can't do this kind of thing. However, Shimo used reality to prove his strength. The old man understands. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded. You know how to select the leader of Gode 13, right? Considering that Lingting is waiting to be thriving, the first test of the team is temporarily waived. You only need the approval of the 9 captains to be able to take up the post immediately. Hearing that, Shimo was somewhat surprised. Does it have to be acknowledged by them? 1. Yamamoto Genryusai seems to be particularly determined in this matter. That's right. The defection of the 3 captains left Gode 13 with only 9 captains. In other words, you need to pass the approval of all members to be able to succeed as the captain. Shimo leads with a smile. I see. After all, it depends on Kuretsuchi Miyuri's thoughts. Leaving from the first team house, Shimo considers the pros and cons of becoming the captain. Generally speaking, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. For this, he can make a small contribution the 12th Division Team House. Technology Development Bureau. Seeing Shimo sitting with his legs upright in front of him, Shimo was scattered. The expression of Dekari is extremely helpless. Shimo-kun. I have selectively forgotten what you didn't help out at the beginning. So, why did you come to me today? After hearing about Shimo's strength, when Yuli faced him, all those careful thoughts had been reduced. He is still struggling to deal with a travel disaster, and he doesn't think he can beat the current equals the highest combat power in the palace. Nothing. Shimo picked his nails and said casually. I want to succeed as the captain of the 3rd Division, and I need the approval of 9 captains. 1. You are the first captain I came to find. Hearing Shimo begging for himself, Kuretsuchi Miyuri's lively mind moved again. It turned out to be because of this, on his face covered with weird paint, a faint smile appeared. I also want to ask you one thing. About the power of your Zanpakutō. Gift. Click. The Zanpakutō on Shimo's waist was unsheathed, and the instrument beside him was cut in half. Electromagnetic sparks flickered in it, and countless lines were exposed to the outside world. Kuretsuchi Miyuri's mouth twitched, and a trace of distress flashed in his eyes. This instrument was just replaced by him. Shimo threatened, and took Zanpakutō back into the scabbard, and asked again. What did you say? Thank you to repeat it again. Chapter 134 Sajin's Strength Test Advertisement. Ahem. Kuretsuchi Miyuri coughed to hide his embarrassment. Have always traded with those reasonable captains, or bullied the teammates under him. After Shimo made a request, he subconsciously used it to coerce him. However, he has forgotten one thing. Shimo is not a reasonable person. It's a lucky thing to go down with this cut without cutting your head. No problem. Seeing that Shimo has a tendency to cut again, Kuretsuchi Miyuri hurriedly changed his words. What I just said is no problem. After that, he turned around and pulled out a piece of white paper from the workbench and wrote on it. After a while, Kuretsuchi Miyuri turned around and handed the paper to Shimo. This is my letter of approval. There are 3 ways to become a captain. Kuretsuchi Miyuri suddenly said, considering the current form of Yulingting. Captain Yamamoto should let you choose the second way, right? Shimo nodded and said, that's right. In addition to you, I have to go to the 7th and 10th teams. I hope Captain Tamari and Captain Hitsugaya have a stronger attitude than you. Hearing this, Kuretsuchi Miyuri's heart is chilling. Others want everything to go well, but when they come to you, they actually want others to reject themselves. For a while, Kuretsuchi Miyuri felt that Shimo's brain was a little bit wrong. But when considering the huge disparity in strength between the opponent and himself, Kuretsuchi Miyuri didn't have the meaning to say what was in his heart. Otherwise, it is estimated that the equipment of the Technology Development Bureau is not enough for Shimo. Farewell, Captain Kuretsuchi Miyuri. There was a hint of irony in Shimo's tone. If you continue guys' research on the capabilities of my Zanpakutō, I don't mind using it on you. The ability of the mead droplets can't shield the divided space. The last words fell. Kuretsuchi Miyuri's pupils shrank suddenly, and a look of horror flashed in his eyes. How do you know? Shimo waved his hand and left the 12th squad without looking back. Regarding Kuretsuchi Miyuri's question, he didn't have much interest in answering. This guy, although usually seems to be just a scientist who is addicted to research. But at some point, he did countless things beyond the limit for research. The research result of a meat explosive bomb alone is enough for Shimo to stay away from it. It's better if Dolly doesn't provoke him. Shimo doesn't mind giving him a knife if he specifically hits the knife. If it wasn't the time before, I had some ideas about improving my strength, and would not choose to look for Kuretsuchi Miyuri to cooperate. What an arrogant fellow. The moment Shimo left, the smile on Daeli's face suddenly disappeared. He looked sullenly in the direction Shimo was leaving, with a hint of resentment in his voice. Ignoring Negri's thoughts, Shimo came to the 9th division alone. Hitsugaya Dashiro was able to recover from his injury in a short period of time and re-entered his work, all thanks to his treatment. Among the 4th divisions, only the level of Kaido of Egghuili can be compared with Shimo. As the deputy captain of the 4th division, Shimo has always been relatively competent. The 10th division's team house is not as dilapidated as imagined. On the contrary, the environment here is still the same as before. Obviously, this is one of the few places that has not been damaged by Kurosaki Ichigo and others. Master Shimo. The Shinigami team members standing in front of the gate saluted very respectfully when they saw Shimo. Shimo is now a well-known figure in the entire Yulingting. More than 90% of Shinigami players have heard of this name. Killing the defector Shinigami Tusen Kanami with one slash, just one thing is enough to be famous. Therefore, Shimo's reputation in the Wandering Palace is far beyond his own imagination. I'm here to visit Captain Hitsugaya. The goalkeeper Shinigami bowed his head respectfully. Please wait a moment, I will go to enjoy the newspaper. When the voice fell, he hurried into the captain's team building for convenience. In the archives room, Hitsugaya Dashiro frowned, flipping through various materials. For the mental illness that the 4th division team was helpless, he could only choose to help Hinamori Momo recover from his current state through his own methods. Report to the captain. The voice of the goalkeeper came from the archives room. The 4th division deputy captain, Lord Shimo, is here to visit. Advertisement. The high-pitched voice suddenly awakened Hitsugaya Dashiro, who was addicted to finding a way. Shimo-kun? A hint of doubt appeared on Hitsugaya Dashiro's face. Is it because of being the captain? Facing Shimo, he didn't dare to entrust him. After 2 real beatings, Hitsugaya Dashiro knew the difference in strength between himself and Shimo. Soon, Shimo was in the reception room and saw Hitsugaya Dashiro with a cold expression. Shall buy. Shimo looks familiar, completely forgetting his previous beating Hitsugaya Dashiro. I think with your brain, it should be easy to guess the purpose of my trip, right? Hitsugaya Dashiro was too lazy to refute the name Shall buy. Can't beat and beat, what else can I do? This is my letter of approval. Hitsugaya Dashiro has been prepared in advance. Shimo's eyes lit up and took over the approval letter in his hand. Good job, Shall buy. You have a much better brain than that Kuratsuchi Mayuri. Hitsugaya Dashiro sighed and said helplessly. In fact, I have a small request for this. Shimo smiled. Just say it. Hitsugaya Dashiro's expression was tangled, and he suggested. Can you stop calling Shaozi this in the future? Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Shimo. It doesn't exist, it's impossible, don't even think about it. Your name is so long, it's hard to get a shorter title. In this regard, Hitsugaya Dashiro still wants to struggle. Actually, you can also call Hitsugaya or Dashiro. However, Shimo didn't pay attention to this. Sanaka's approval letter, the pen said. If the purpose of this trip is achieved, then I will leave first. Correct. Before Shimo left, suddenly remembered something. You have to find a professional for your mind. The research on this by the Technology Development Bureau far exceeds that of the 4th division. Hearing this, Hitsugaya Dashiro suddenly shines. Yes. Why didn't I think of it? Thank you. He raised his head, only to find that Shimo in front of him had disappeared in place. Leaving the 10th division, Shimo went straight to the 7th division. For the village Sajin, it's a bit of trouble after all. Although Tusen Kanami is a traitor to the Jiling Ting, he is also the best friend of Sajin in the village. Shimo cut it with a knife, and then came to ask for a certificate of approval. It was a bit too much. The 7th division team house. There are layers of white bandages wrapped around Sajin's body, just exposing a head. How cute is the fluffy appearance? Shimo shuddered and put aside some dangerous thoughts in his mind. He came here today, but he is in charge of the business. Deputy Captain Shimo, in the dull voice of Pamura Sajin, there is no change in his mood. Why are you here? Before coming, Shimo had put away the laughing expression on his face. Shimo still sympathizes with Sajin, the poor village of Tamari. Because of the order of Captain Yamamoto, Shimo recounted the captain's approval letter briefly. After a long time, Sajin Boken put down the teacup in his hand and said in a deep voice. The old man understands. However, since Master Yuan Lujai's request, the old man must take it seriously. Shimo's mind was startled. Looking at this posture, does Sajin Hikumura still want to make a fight? Don't look at the old man with that look, Sajin Ijung said. If Yuan Luze-sama says yes, then even death must be ease. The old man is definitely not dissatisfied with you because of Tusen's affairs. Advertisement, please believe in what the old man is. Shimo. Seeking flowers for a while, I didn't know what to say. Unexpectedly, under your thick eyebrows and big eyes, there is also such a heart hidden. What's the difference between you saying this and stealing the bell? I see. Shimo sighed and asked, what kind of test Captain Boken wants to carry out? I saw Pamura Sajin stretched out his fluffy hands, and a deep voice sounded. Broken your wrist. If you win, I will give you a certificate of approval. Shimo was silent and looked at his palm that was completely disproportionate to the other party. For a while, he didn't know what to say. Who told me that Sajin has a straightforward personality and doesn't have so many crooked minds in his mind? Does this look like there is no crooked mind? Pamura Sajin is quite self-aware of his own strength. At best, it's just like Tusen Kanami. But Shimo was able to kill Tusen Kanami with a single shot, and naturally he was able to kill him in seconds. Pamura Sajin still doesn't want to die. His justice has not been carried out to the end, he has not yet avenged Aizen, and he has not continued to repay Master Yuenryuji's kindness. Shimo frowned slightly, looking at the palm of his hand on the table. Abandoning the external factors such as Ryotsu, he doesn't have much confidence to win if he compares strength alone. Hikumura Sajin is not a normal shinigami after all. As a man-wolf clan, his power is far beyond the normal shinigami captain. Suddenly, an idea came to Shimo's mind, and his eyes suddenly lit up. In that case, come on. Shimo shook the palm of Sajin in Shongbo village, and a sense of power was immediately transmitted from his hand. Just when Sajin of Bomura was about to start calling, Shimo suddenly called to stop. Wait. You have to find a referee. What if I win and you run the bill? Pamura Sajin laughed angrily and said loudly, You doubt the old man's personality? Zaemon. The call came, and within a moment, Tezaemon on the shooting site rushed to the gate of the captain's team at an extremely fast speed. The man Saemon came to report. May I ask what the captain has to order? Tezaemon was born in the 11th squad, and was later transferred to the 7th squad. So in terms of acting style, quite the style of the 11th division. Shimo knew this, but he didn't feel any surprise. I have a wrist wrestling match with Deputy Captain Shimo, and you will be the referee. Sajin of Tamari village ordered. The shooting site Tezaemon knelt and sat on the left side of the table, his eyes under the sunglasses staring at the hands of the two. 3, 2, 1. Game start. With a loud shout, Shimo suddenly felt the terrifying power from Sudo. Enough to carry the power of a mountain. A hint of wonder flashed in Shimo's eyes. In his perception, Sajin Hikumura did not use a trace of Ryotsu, relying only on her own strength. Pity professional players can't do it. Space stagnation is not just a space for stagnating enemies. When the ability is activated, it is also a space that can stagnate itself. At this time, the space behind Shimo's right hand was completely frozen. Unless Sajin's power can surpass his own power after solution, it is impossible to push it. Sweat, seeping from under the fur of Sajin in Tamari village. As a family of humans and wolves, his perspiration method is closer to that of humans. Although I can stick my tongue out to wick away perspiration, it is still a bit unsightly. Astonishment gradually occupies everything in his pupils. It is the first time that Sajin truly realized Shimo's power. No matter how he developed his own strength, even the wound on his arm was reusing blood because of the excessive strength, but there was still nothing to do with Shimo. The other side smiled and looked at him calmly. Judging by the degree of changes in the arm muscles, Shimo didn't even exert any strength at all. Desperate emotions gradually flooded Sajin's mind. After persisting for more than 10 minutes, Sajin Haka village finally chose to give up. At this moment, his right arm is full of blood oozing out, and he looks very embarrassed. In the eyes of the wolf, a trace of unwillingness flashed, but there was nothing he could do. After a long time, Sajin's low voice sounded, Old man admit defeat, 0. Chapter 135 Be the Captain. Advertisement. Tezaemon opened his mouth and stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Self-proclaimed as a man, he was also defeated by the power of Pamura Sajin when he joined the 7th division. Since then, he has directly and thoroughly recognized his new captain. But now, a more terrifying person appeared. Deputy Captain of the 4th Division, Kyōraku Shimo. Without any effort, he easily slaughtered Sajin in the village. Advertisement. How is this possible? Tezaemon at the shooting site feels that his 3 views are being reshaped. Once upon a time, he also discussed Shimo with his friend Madarei Makaku. At that time, Madarei Makaku highly praised Shimo, calling him the strongest person he ever met. Tezaemon at the shooting site had some doubts, but when Shimo's record spread throughout the Yuling Palace, this doubt disappeared. At this time, the current scene has once again refreshed his knowledge of Shimo. After his brain was constantly thinking and searching, Tezaemon, the shooting field, made an evaluation. Advertisement. Outrageous person. When leaving from the 7th Division, once again came to the 1st Division team house. When the 3 letters of approval were delivered to Yamamoto Genryuji's hands, a trace of surprise flashed in his closed eyes. Very nice. From now on, you will be the captain of its 3rd division. But the old man is very curious about one more thing. Chapter 136 Be the Captain. Advertisement. Tezaemon opened his mouth and stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Self-proclaimed as a man, he was also defeated by the power of Pamura Sajin when he joined the 7th division. Since then, he has directly and thoroughly recognized his new captain. But now, a more terrifying person appeared. Deputy Captain of the 4th Division, Kyōraku Shimo. Without any effort, he easily slaughtered Sajin in the village. How is this possible? Tezaemon at the shooting site feels that his 3 views are being reshaped. Once upon a time, he also discussed Shimo with his friend Madarei Makaku. At that time, Madarame Mikaku highly praised Shimo, calling him the strongest person he ever met. Tezaemon at the shooting site had some doubts, but when Shimo's record spread throughout the Yuling Palace, this doubt disappeared. At this time, the current scene has once again refreshed his knowledge of Shimo. After his brain was constantly thinking and searching, Tezaemon, the shooting field, made an evaluation. Outrageous person. When leaving from the 7th Division, once again came to the 1st Division team house. When the 3 letters of approval were delivered to Yamamoto Genryujai's hands, a trace of surprise flashed in his closed eyes. Very nice. From now on, you will be the captain of its 3rd Division. But the old man is very curious about one more thing. A look of doubt appeared on Shimo's face and said, "Please say, Captain Yamamoto." Yamamoto Genryusai hesitated a bit about this question, but in the end he slowly said, "Bossy-chi, Kyōraku Shimo, what is your explanation?" Hearing this question, Shiba's expression is inevitably a bit embarrassing. "Captain Yamamoto, tell the truth. I still don't have my own solution until now." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rapid cough from Yamamoto Genryusei. Ahem. There is no master solution? The face of Chojiro Sasaki on the side also showed an incredible expression. This Yamamoto Genyanagi relied on a strong psychological quality and did not lose his stance in front of Kyōraku Shimo. There are so many surprising things that I have seen recently. His bearing capacity is gradually being elevated. Shimo's face was bitter, and he was very helpless about this matter. That's the way it is, I can't help it. Yamamoto Motonyujai sighed. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Comfort Shimo. If it doesn't exist, Shikai can kill Tusen Kanami in one shot. It doesn't matter whether he has a solution. But as the captain, it was a pity that the master couldn't solve it. Although Zaraki Kenpachi of the 11th Division has no master solution, even Shikai can't do it. Shimo's situation is better than Zaraki Kenpachi. No matter what, you have proven yourself with strength. Yamamoto Genryusai decided to skip this matter and go directly to the result. Shojiro, prepare Hell Butterfly to notify the captains and lieutenants of the teams. An hour later, the inauguration ceremony of the captain of the 3rd Division will be held in the atrium of the 1st Division. In the atrium of the 1st team building following the news of the Hell Butterfly, the captains and their lieutenants came to attend the inauguration ceremony of the new captain. If it was in the past, they might still have some guesses about the new captain. But now, the identity of the new captain is no longer a secret. The name Kyōraku Shimo, along with its various deeds, has spread throughout the entire Yuling Ting. Not only the team members of Godai 13, but also other executive forces, such as Kido Zhang, are also very aware of the deterrence contained in this name. Abarai Renji followed Byakuya Kuchiki closely, and unexpectedly discovered that his captain's footsteps seemed a bit brisk. It must be that my injury did not heal, which caused the hallucinations. He muttered to himself, how can an iceberg like captain show a brisk pace? Renji, what are you thinking about? The icy voice, like the cold wind of the 12th lunar month, instantly wakes up Abarai Renji. Seeing Kuchiki's self-conscious face like an iceberg in front of him, he subconsciously lowered his head and said, "It's nothing, just a little emotional. At the beginning, Shimo and I were the same class of Mao spiritualism students. However, as time passed, he has become the captain of the 3rd Division." Byakuya Kuchiki's forehead, with a rare smile on his face. Shimo this person advertisement. He shook his head, did not continue, but his eyes fell into memories. Captain Kuchiki. A gentle voice came from behind the two. Abarai Renji turned around, only to find that the person here was the captain of the 4th Division, the Egg, and Katetsu Izan beside him. After Shimo left the team, Katetsu Izan took the post of deputy captain. Captain Eggflower. Byakuya Kuchiki nods. I just heard you talk about Shimo-kun. A curious look appeared on Egg's Huali's face and asked. I heard that you and Shimo-kun have known each other a long time ago, and they are considered good friends. Can you tell me something about Shimo-kun? Hearing this, Kuchiki sighed to himself. A look of helplessness appeared on his face. Where is the friend? It's obviously a loss of friends. Abarai Renji was shocked, with horror on his face. An expression other than anger and calm appeared on Captain Kuchiki's face. Soon, all the members of the first team were present in the atrium. Yamamoto Genryusai stood on the high platform, scanned the crowd, and nodded in satisfaction. Now that all the captains and adjutants are here. Then next, the inauguration ceremony of the new captain officially begins. When the voice fell, the atmosphere in the field suddenly became serious. Yamamoto Genryusai said with a majestic voice, recently, the rebel Aizen Yusuke and others defected to Soul Society, and there are 3 vacancies in the position of Captain Godai. In the recent rally, 6 team captains including Kyōraku Shunsui got fat together, and Kyōraku Shimo, the former deputy captain of the 4th Division. Today, Kyōraku Shimo was recognized by the other 3 captains and passed the final test. In the end, we all agreed that Kyōraku Shimo's ability and character are sufficient for the role of captain. Therefore, the formal appointment, Kyōraku Shimo will be the new captain of the 3rd Division. Hearing that, Kira Izuru was the most shocked, but immediately stretched his eyebrows, and there was no opinion. He has witnessed Shimo's abilities and strengths with his own eyes, and is extremely recognized from the bottom of his heart. "Come in, Captain Shimo," Yamamoto said in a deep voice. As his voice fell, the door of the atrium opened. Shimo, dressed in the white Captain Haori, officially appeared in front of everyone. In an instant, many people were breathing stagnantly, staring at Shimo's new image. Shimo, who was replaced by the Captain Haori, seemed to have undergone a great change in aura. Although it is still the familiar smile, the expressions of the people can already explain everything. On Jenny's face, the corners of his mouth are slightly raised, and his confident and gentle smile is extremely contagious. It wasn't until this time that the captains realized that Shimo's affinity was far beyond ordinary people. The inauguration ceremony of the new captain was not as great as Shimo had imagined. In addition to notifying the captains and lieutenants of each squad, there is also the team members of the current squad. 3rd Division Team House. The team members of the 3rd Division seemed to be full of curiosity about their new captain. But when they saw Shimo's familiar face, everyone closed their mouths. Whether you were happy or dissatisfied, no one dared to stand up and express their opinions. Shimo's face, as if deeply carved into their minds. They don't even know how to face this legendary character. As Shimo has continuously refreshed his reputation in recent times. Few people in Go Day 13 don't know him anymore, whether it's a battle with Zaraki Kenpachi in the 11th squad, or beheading the present Manos Grande alone, or killing the defector captain. Shimo's behavior has made Shinigami's team members full of admiration and longing for. Shinigami should have killed a powerful enemy and made a name for himself. And Shimo undoubtedly set a good example for everyone. Shimo, dressed in the white Captain Haori, walked straight through the team house under the admiration of the 3rd Division team members. Captain's office. The simple yet atmospheric decoration gave Shimo a high look at Ichimaru Jin's taste. Kira Izuru was carrying a large stack of documents early, waiting for Shimo's arrival. "Captain Shimo." After seeing Shimo coming in, Kira Izuru respectfully said. Shimo's brows suddenly burst when he saw what he was holding in his hands. "What is that thing you are holding?" Kira Yi was taken aback, and subconsciously replied. "Advertisement. The various documents and reports accumulated by the 3rd Division, the evaluation of the tasks of the team members, the daily consumption, and the calculation of the rewards." Hiss. Shimo took a breath after hearing the words. "Do you have to deal with so many things to be the captain?" Kira Izuru looked blank and nodded. Seeing this scene, Shimo turned around and left. "Captain, where are you going?" Kira Izuru shouted hurriedly. Shimo said without looking back, "I see if I can ask the captain to retire from this so-called captain position." After Kira Izuru tried his best to stay, Shimo sat down steadily. "Captain, your decision is too arbitrary." Kira Izuru should pull her face, very helpless. Obviously, he had seen Shimo's determination to refuse the job from his actions just now. At the same time, Kira Izuru also remembered the rumors about Kyōraku's family circulating in the spiritual palace. "I want people from Kyōraku's family to work, unless all of Go Day 13's team members are killed." Although this sentence has a ridiculous meaning, it also reflects some problems from the side. Whether it's Kyōraku Shunsui or Kyōraku Shimo, both of them have no working minds. Among the captains, it can also be regarded as the most awe-inspiring existence. "These things look big to me." Shimo forced himself to flip through a few pages forcibly and suddenly felt his head. Kira Izuru sighed. "You don't have to worry too much about these things. Documents are something, I can help you correct it. At that time, you only need to sign on it." Hearing this, Shimo's eyes lit up and asked. "Do you know Aizen?" Hearing this name, Kira Izuru suddenly had a very ominous premonition. Deputy Captain of the 8th Division snapped. Shimo snapped his fingers and motioned. "After tomorrow, you go to the 8th Division to find Aizen and ask her about the experience of managing the division. When the time comes, just report my name directly." Kira Izuru's face collapsed. By Shimo's words, the meaning is quite clear. As a deputy captain, Aizen managed the 8th Division in an orderly manner. In the eyes of others, it's just 0.0 outrageous. Just when Kira Izuru was distressed, suddenly a team member appeared outside the door to report. "Captain, Deputy Captain, Patriarch Iwagami, Kazuya Iwagami came to visit." Shimo frowned slightly. Iwagami Kazuya. Although he is a little familiar with this name, he has searched for all his memories and couldn't find it. Kira Izuru reminded, "Inferior nobles, Yu Lingting's stroke comment is very good. It is said that it seems to have participated in the selection of Central 46. Hearing that, Shimo's mind flashed through the list of hundreds of candidates. It seems that the so-called wind reviews are good, and they are just fooling others. Under the leadership of the team member, Shimo met the Kazuya Iwagami. As expected with him, the other party was very sincere and wanted to trade with Shimo with various interests. "I only hope that he can vote for him in the 46-room selection." In response, Shimo chose to go vaguely, neither refused nor agreed. For the selection of the 46 room, he thinks otherwise. After Iwagami Kazuya left, several nobles came to visit, and some of them were even high-class nobles. Shimo directly asked Kira Izuru to go out and pushed all the visits away. But soon, Kira Izuru came to the team house again. His face was embarrassing. Captain, I think you should meet the next guest. Shimo frowned slightly and asked, what guest? Kira Izuru felt a little bit sore, and said in a low voice. Inferior nobleman, B family, chapter 137. The impatient B family, go to this world. Advertisement. From generation to generation, the lower-level nobles mainly engaged in assassinations and executions, and the whole clan joined the criminal army, and generations are destined to dedicate their lives to this. Among them, Broken B is the family's highest honor codename, passed down from generation to generation by the strongest. The current Shattered B, the captain of the 2nd Division, formerly known as Feng Xiaoji, she inherited the title of Shattered Vine from her grandmother. The B family? There was a little doubt in Shimo's expression. Does the B family also have the idea of getting involved in the selection of the 46 room? 1. Kira Izuru hesitated. I think someone might come here specifically for you. It has nothing to do with Central 46. Shimo frowned and asked. What's the meaning? Kira Izuru explained. The one who came is the current head of Feng family, Feng Liwi. People came to visit in the name of elders. Shimo got up and left the captain's team house. Each squad house has its own guest house, and the 3rd squad is naturally no exception. When Shimo came to the meeting hall, he first saw an old lady with silver hair and money sitting at the red tea table. He was somewhat short in stature, dressed in plain clothes, and faintly visible the shadow of a broken bee in the old traces on his face. With a tight expression, the old man's long fingers, gently tapping on the tea table, making a slight rhythmic sound. The Bee Master. Shimo considered the name of Qian for a while, but still decided to call the old lady as Patriarch of the Bee. Captain Shimo. The other party is neither humble nor overbearing, with a self-assured expression. The purpose of my coming here, I think you should already be very clear. Shimo had not had time to answer the call in the future when he heard that the other party had clearly explained his purpose. The girl of Broken Bee has already told me about you some time ago. The Bee family wanted to give you a test. Speaking of this, Feng Lai hesitated. But I gave up this decision after all sorts of thoughts. At the moment, there is no young man who is better than your 14th in the Lingting. Kira Izuru stood on the side with a serious face, as if it had nothing to do with me. However, his left ear was quietly erected. Shimo noticed his strangeness. He lifted his foot and kicked Kira Izuru out. You continue. Miri was taken aback by Shimo's behavior and paused. I really want to know what the B family thinks now. Shimo smiled, and he didn't seem to have the slightest arrogance. Feng Liwi hesitated and continued, and not long ago, you even served as the captain of the 3rd Division. So, as the elder of Broken B, I want to ask you something. Shimo picked up the teacup on the table, ready to taste the captain's special tea. But you say it's okay. Feng Liwi looked around. This old lady is not an elderly person at all. Considering that the other party has served in the criminal army, and may even have held positions such as the commander of the criminal army. Shimo didn't underestimate her. When are you going to marry Broken Bee? Puff. Shimo didn't control the tea in his mouth, so he sprayed it all out. Fortunately, it reacted quickly and did not spray the other party. Ah, the tea is too hot. Shimo coughed slightly, concealing his embarrassment. Why are you elders always anxious to marry your daughters out? Just worry that no one will want it. Shimo didn't even know how to respond. I thought that the B family was here to test themselves, or wanted to intervene in the selection of Central 46. But I didn't expect that the other party actually came to see off his wife. Shimo's heart was tangled. I don't know what kind of answer I should use to reply to the other party. Ah, Master B. After thinking for a long time, Shimo decided to tell the truth. If you want to come, you should know that I already have a marriage. Sister of the Shiba Patriarch, Shiba Sorasuru. Upon hearing this, Feng Lihui's expression suddenly became a little anxious. Of course I know this, but this is not your reason for rejecting my broken monster. Do you want to eat it and wipe it out and turn your face to deny people? Boom. The sound of a heavy object falling outside the door, accompanied by someone's painful cry. Immediately there was a rush of footsteps, and there was no movement outside the door. Shimo didn't even bother to watch it. Eavesdrop as you eavesdrop. It is estimated that this kind of thing has spread throughout the entire Yulingting along with some of his deeds. Advertisement, however, what does it mean that you just wiped it out in your mouth and turned your face to deny people? Master B, please pay attention to the wording when you speak. Shimo tried to correct the opponent's point of view. I didn't say not to marry Broken B, it's just that it's not the right time yet. Upon hearing this, Feng Liwi breathed a sigh of relief and said with joy. It's okay, as long as you still have this idea. If I hadn't heard that Yoriichi-sama is back, I don't need to be so anxious. Shimo raised his brows and asked, what's the meaning? The wrinkles on Feng Li's face were squeezed tightly together, looking full of wrinkles. As the family of Broken B, how can I not see that this girl's admiration for Yoriichi-sama has transcended gender? Fortunately, the appearance of Captain Shimo, you broke him back. So, while Broken B is still liking you, hurry up and marry her. Speaking of this, there was a trace of determination on Feng Li's face. Raw rice to cook mature rice, cut off other improper thoughts of this girl. Shimo stared at the old lady in front of him dumbfounded. The development of the matter really exceeded his expectations. Feng Liui is gone. Very decisive when she learned that Shimo still cared about Broken Bee, she was completely relieved. Watching its leaving back, Shimo's expression is quite tangled. By the way, should I tell the bee family about Shihu and Yoruichi? Finally got out of the tiger's mouth, and got into the wolf's den again? Never mind, Shimo dismissed this idea. Let it go. For a period of time in the future, nobles will come to visit constantly. Longtang Temple, Kishwan, Hongtian. Because of the peculiarities of Shimo's identity, it became the target of various nobles. If Shimo's strength were not taken into account, it is estimated that this group of crazy nobles might even use force to intimidate Shimo. Unfortunately, Shimo Naki called the heaven-defying general record, which discouraged these guys and could only resort to bribery to obtain votes. Shimo met a few people selectively, and all the other visitors were rejected by him. However, in his heart, he has already excluded all these visitors. Although Shimo didn't want to interfere in room 46. But I don't want these guys to add obstacles to themselves after taking office. After excluding them all, Shimo was a little surprised to find that there was only one person left on the list. The only candidate for Rukongai? If this is the case, it is better to bring up a judge. Shimo also heard a little about the last person. He is kind and is responsible for the overall exchange trade of West Rukongai. Because of his existence, the environment of Rukongai in the West is much better than that of the other 3 Rukongai. After handing over his voting results to Yamamoto Genryusai, the 46-room selection also officially got rid of Shimo's relationship. In the captain's team house, at the tea table, boom, boom, boom. The gentle rhythmic sound strikes on the tea table. Aizen incident, the crimes of everyone in this world have been washed away. The injuries of Kurosaki Ichigo and others have almost recovered. Shimo thought, talking to himself. Next, maybe you can consider bringing Nilu to Soul Society. Shimo has an attitude of pity in his heart for the purely ultimate Nilu. What's more, people have already identified themselves. It's not the same thing to just throw it in this world. Urahara Kazuki has complained to him more than once that Nilu destroyed the research facility. With the recovery of her soul injury, although Nilu's personality is still pure, her destructive power is increasing day by day. No matter how you look at it, Shimo needs to bring Nilu to his side. It's just right, let's go to the 4th division first. Shimo thought about it, asked the travelers if they have any intentions to leave. After making up his mind, after greeted Kira Izuru, Shimo left the 3rd division team house. Comprehensive ambulance. Shimo walked into it, a scene of harmony. The 4 travel accidents were all at the desk, carefully recording something. Seeing this scene, Shimo took a closer look curiously. Number theory, sets, quadratic functions. The horrible memories came to mind again. Shimo just feels that his head is a little confused. Who brought this here? It wasn't until Shimo spoke up that everyone came to their senses and found that there was one more person in the room. Mr. Shimo. The 4 people exclaimed, their expressions surprised. Advertisement. You come to the Lingling court to save people, do you still bring your homework with you? Shimo felt that their brain circuits seemed a little abnormal. Ishida Yulong pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and explained. The main reason was that I might not be able to finish the homework after the school started, so I brought it in advance. I'm planning ahead. Kurosaki Ichigo interrupted his boasting and asked with a serious face. When are you going to let us go? Shimo waved his hand, sat next to him, and explained with a smile. The Aizen incident, you didn't commit any crimes. On the contrary, as a member of the resistance against Aizen, you have to be praised by Soul Society. Saying. He took out an object from his arms and threw it to Kurosaki Ichigo. What is this? Kurosaki Ichigo looked at the object in his hand. It was a pentagonal shape with a skeleton on it being crossed by 2 horizontal lines. Shinigami agency card. Shimo said grinningly, it has the functions of soul out of the body, communication, alarm, 847, and monitoring. This thing, but I specifically asked for Captain Yamamoto. Upon hearing this, Kurosaki Ichigo frowned tightly and asked. What's the meaning? Shimo looked at Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes very seriously and explained. This thing allows you to transform into Shinigami when you encounter Shu. In addition, there is Ryotsu, who is testing the virtual reality and communicating with Soul Society. And monitor your role. Unlike Jashiro Yukitaki, Shimo directly told Kurosaki Ichigo of all the functions of Shinigami's proxy card. It is necessary for him to conceal this aspect. Jashiro Yukitaki doesn't know Kurosaki Ichigo's character, but Shimo knows. Rather than conceal it, it's better to just click through from the beginning. I don't think this is necessary. Kurosaki Ichigo is a little weak in front of Shimo's momentum. What? Shimo was puzzled and knocked Kurosaki Ichigo on the head. Do you really think your soul is not attractive to Shu? In addition, a Shinigami who possesses the strength of a captain, wanders around in the world at will. Do you think Soul Society will be assured of you? As a special person, you are not under the surveillance of Soul Society. Following Shimo's explanation, Kurosaki Ichigo also gradually came to himself. You know, even if the 13th squad goes to the world to perform tasks, it needs to pass the supervision of the Technology Development Bureau. Not to mention, a time bomb like yours. After hearing all Shimo's explanation, Kurosaki Ichigo let out a sigh. Huh, I understand. Afterwards, he solemnly collected the Shinigami proxy card. This thing is related to the safety of his family, so it's not sloppy. Thank you, Mr. Shimo. Kurosaki Ichigo solemnly thanked him. As a wise man, he obviously understands Shimo's kindness to him. Although it still feels a little weird, his instinct tells him that Shimo in front of him is not dangerous. Of course, if there is danger, he can't beat it. In terms of strength, Kurosaki Ichigo knows well. At the beginning, he was also on the hill of double powers. Well, that's all. Shimo stood up and greeted. Since your injuries have recovered, then leave Yulingting as soon as possible and return to this world. Upon hearing this, joy appeared on everyone's faces. In addition, I will leave with you, Shimo said with a smile. Afterwards, he solemnly collected the Shinigami proxy card. This thing is related to the safety of his family, so it's not sloppy. Thank you, Mr. Shimo. Kurosaki Ichigo solemnly thanked him. As a wise man, he obviously understands Shimo's kindness to him. Although it still feels a little weird, his instinct tells him that Shimo in front of him is not dangerous. Of course, if there is danger, he can't beat it. In terms of strength, Kurosaki Ichigo knows well. At the beginning, he was also on the hill of double powers. Well, that's all. Shimo stood up and greeted. Since your injuries have recovered, then leave Yulingting as soon as possible and return to this world. Upon hearing this, joy appeared on everyone's faces. In addition, I will leave with you, Shimo said with a smile. Chapter 138 Shimo's Plan, Supersized Lingshi Clothing. Advertisement. This world. The hell butterfly flies and disappears in front of Shimo. Thinking of the scene just now, he had a toothache. Forget that those guys are not official Shinigami. But Yuan should not be arrested and chased by Buu. A black head poked out from Shimo's arms. Don't worry. Those guys with the lowest strength are also above the upper seat officials. Passing a boundary is not too troublesome. The black cat's voice fell, but someone on the roof not far away greeted them. Yo. Miss Yoruichi. Shimo-kun. Urahara Kazuki's voice is as cheerful as ever, and nothing seems to affect his mood. Black Ichigo and it hasn't waited for Shimo to answer. Above the sky is about to open a door. Under Urahara Kazuki's stunned gaze, a group of people rushed out of the door and fell directly downward. At the critical moment, I don't know what measures Urahara Kazuki initiated. Only heard a bang from the ground, the huge flying carpet curtain instantly rushed into the sky, wrapping a group of people in it. Immediately, a figure leapt high from the roof. Jinda, home run. The shouting voice resounded in the air boom. The sour sound of the impact of the root rod impacted on the flying carpet curtain. Immediately, under the huge impact, the people wrapped into balls flew to the ground at a faster speed. Although I don't know how much force the flying carpet invented by Urahara Kazuki can resist. But Shimo feels that those who take the blow hard will probably not be too uncomfortable. Tessai won at some point. Tessai appeared directly under the flying carpet ball. Death catch. Under Shimo's surprised gaze, Tessai held a group of people in his arms. A good big Kido, he just played as a melee fighter. Shimo's mouth twitched, not knowing what to say. Click on the crooked skill tree, and I don't know if I can come back. I saw that Tessai's body twisted, strong arm strength, and instantly threw the flying carpet into the sky again. The screams are constantly emitted in the flying carpet. Until, the entire flying carpet is fully opened and flying above the sky. Shimo stepped on Lingziyu and performed high-speed majestic steps in the air, and the next moment he landed on the flying carpet. At the moment he sat down, a swift figure flew from below. Boom. Shimo subconsciously placed a Ryotsu protective layer on his chest to resist the attack. Well, my head is dizzy. The petite body appeared in Shimo's arms, dividing the position of the black cat. Nilu, whose head was a little dizzy, immediately let out a cheer after seeing her environment clearly. Shimo. Niluk misses you. Nilu cheered and buried her head in Shimo's arms, rubbing back and forth. I miss you as well. Shimo stroked his soft turquoise hair, soothing his restless mood. The black cat couldn't bear the weight of being squeezed, and leapt to Shimo's shoulder. Shimo and others, sitting on the corner of the flying carpet. Give the environment to Urahara Kazuki, Kuroi Ichigo and others. Urahara Kazuki still needs to explain what happened in Yulingting. Facing Kurosaki Ichigo's questioning, Urahara Kazuki stubbornly resisted everything. Sorry, classmate Ichigo. Urahara Kazuki was very sincere. I did hide something from you in this matter. Hope to get your understanding. Hey Ichigo thought about it for a while and nodded. Jien gone. You don't have any bad intentions, so, I will forgive you. At this point, Kurosaki Ichigo and others' Soul Society journey has come to an end for the time being. Ishida Uryu stiffly announced to Kurosaki Ichigo that the next time they meet, the two will be enemies. After all, one of them is a Quincy and the other is Shinigami. Hearing that, Shimo curled his lips, disdainfully said. Neither will you declare war on Soul Society. Not giving up is not giving up, what's the point of Tsunere? Ahem. Advertisement Ishida Yulong barely died on the flying carpet by his own saliva. For Shimo, he didn't even know how to deal with it. Can't beat and beat, can only endure silently, that's it. Ishida Yulong prepares to jump off the flying carpet and leave. Shimo stopped him suddenly. By the way, if you want to restore the ability of the Quincy, go to Longshan. He has a way to restore your spiritual power. Hearing this, Ishida Yulong's hole shrinks slightly, and a hint of surprise flashes in his eyes. Immediately, he whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Shimo." Then, he jumped down from the flying carpet, and his figure gradually disappeared into the street. Kurosaki Ichigo watched the opponent leave, and asked solemnly, "Mr. Shimo, what you just said?" Shimo stroked Niwen's hair and explained. Ishida Uryu and Kuratsuchi Mayuri, the captain of the 12th squad, played against each other in the Yuling Ting. When it fell in the wind, using the spirit gloves of the Quincy clan, he entered the final form of the Quincy. The powerful Lingza has surpassed the limit he can bear. It won't be long before Ishida Yulong will completely lose all the abilities of the Quincy. Hearing this, Kurosaki Ichigo's complexion burst, and his eyes were full of shock. But don't worry about it. Shimo comforted, Ishida Ryushin will help him recover. Although Kurosaki Ichigo is very confused about the name Ryugen Ishida. But looking at Shimo's appearance, Seeping is not ready to explain. Okay, Kurosaki Hospital is here. Urahara Kazuki is lowering his fisherman hat to prevent it from being blown away by the high winds. Ichigo, don't slack off. Urahara Kazuki has a mysterious smile on his face. At that time, we still need your strength. For some reason, Kurosaki Ichigo had an ominous premonition when he saw the smile on Urahara Kazuki's face. Although it is very offensive to say this, Kurosaki Ichigo said helplessly. But I really don't want to see your face again. In his heart, Urahara Kazuki symbolizes battle, danger and the Manos Grande he least wants to see. When sending Kurosaki Ichigo and his party back to their respective homes, Tessai Tsukabishi manipulated the flying carpet and returned to the Urahara store. Just fly me. Walu Jinda and Nawuyu are going to do their own cleaning work. These two cyborgs, Shimo witnessed their birth. As for its role, it was nothing but a trick reserved by Urahara Kazuki. Urahara Kazuki, one of the 5 special combat powers symbolizing, means, always prepares various backup methods for himself or others in his free time to prevent accidents. Obviously, Walu Jinda and Pumping House Rain are follow-up methods for the world. A group of people sat around the tea table, holding hot tea in their hands. Nilu was sitting in Shimo's arms, and the black cat was lying on her head. The three looked around, the room was strangely quiet. For a long time, Tessai could not bear this kind of atmosphere, and broke the silence first. I'll change a pot of hot water. After that, he got up and left the tea table. Okay, let's talk about the plan this time. Urahara Kazuki took off the fisherman hat, revealing some messy light yellow short hair. Shimo took a sip of the tea, and this time he specifically asked Tessai to replace the normal tea produced by Soul Society. Except that the water temperature is a bit hot, everything else is fine. The plan was very successful, Shimo said casually. Aizen has taken Hogyoku away. As for when the integration will be successful, will he come up with any mobs during this period? I don't know much about this. Hearing this, Urahara Kazuki calculated it in his mind. I hope there won't be any mistakes. The time for complete integration is about 3 months, of course without external force. Shimo nodded, not taking these words to heart. Urahara's help is only a rough test. Accidents are everywhere. The appearance of Shimo alone has disrupted all his plans, let alone other things. What's the situation with Naoko Hirako? Shimo suddenly remembered that there are still a group of Visored in this world. He has been stationed in this world for more than 10 years, and he has only met them once. Facing the chaos, these guys just maintained the stability of the area where they lived. For other cities and places, Shinigami, who is stationed in the world, is still in charge. Urahara Kazuki shook his head and said, as usual. Advertisement, tell them about Aizen. Shimo nodded when he heard the words, and didn't mind that Visored's people intervened. Although facing Aizen, it was nothing more than cannon fodder. But it's better than nothing. It's boring if Aizen is just relied on him. War, it's more interesting to have more people. By the way, I forgot to tell you one more thing. Shimo put the teacup down, his eyes widened and said. I was successfully promoted to captain of the 3rd division with the recommendation of 9 captains. Urahara Kazuki's pupils shrunk slightly, flashing a hint of surprise. Because Shimo still wears a regular death due outfit in this world, Urahara Kazuki didn't recognize it. That's really congratulations. Urahara Kazuki picked up the teacup and prepared to drink it all. However, at the moment of the tea entrance, his face suddenly changed. Why is the tea smell so weird this time, Tessai? As soon as he heard his voice, Tessai Tsukabishi came to the room. Does the manager have any questions? Urahara Kazuki held the teacup and asked. Are the tea leaves expired this time? It tastes so weird. Tessai was stunned for a moment, then turned and left, and soon returned again. He exchanged the tea in Urahara Kazuki's hand and handed it to him again. Urahara Kazuki took a sip of tea and nodded with satisfaction. This time it tastes right. Shimo looked at the scene in front of him, his mouth twitched. He can be sure that the tea he drank has never expired. Urahara Kazuki used to drink the same tea as himself. So in other words, this tea is actually made from expired tea leaves. Does the Mavericks also have their own tastes? Shimo shook his head and looked at Urahara Kazuki with a hint of pity. In addition to telling you this information, I have another purpose when I return to this world. Upon hearing this, Urahara Kazuki raised his head and said in a daze. What's the matter? Shimo paused and said solemnly. I'm going to bring Nilou to the Soul Society. Upon hearing this, Urahara Kazuki put a smile on her face and frowned. This matter is a Manos Grande of Vasto Lord level. If Nilou enters the Soul Society, it will inevitably cause a disturbance. But looking at Shimo's appearance, it seems that he doesn't care at all. Urahara Kazuki thought for a moment and asked, why don't I prepare an extra dress? Spirit mask clothing is one of Urahara Kazuki's inventions. It has helped Aizen's actions a lot, and can hide himself Ryotsu. With the number 26 Bakudo bent light, it can hide itself perfectly, even the captain level shinigami can't detect it. Shimo waved his hand and rejected Urahara Kazuki's kindness. The clothing of the spirit cover can only be maintained for a while, and cannot be hidden forever. Can't let Nilou stay under the black cloak forever? Even if Nilou didn't mind, Shimo wouldn't agree. This kind of life is not necessarily in this world. It looks like you have already decided. Urahara Kazuki's eyes are a bit complicated. Shimo nodded, determined. In that case. Urahara Kazuki suddenly opened the cloth tent behind him and said with a smile. Bring these two guys together. Under the tent, Don Chaka and Peishui are lying here, seeming to have been eavesdropping for a long time. The two have returned to their normal human form, but their looks are not attractive. It's that Dongdaika's head is still big, Peishui is still as thin as a monkey. Seeing Shimo's gaze came over, there were awkward smiles on their faces. Shimo emptied his eyes and looked at the large strip of cloth in Urahara Kazuki's hand. This thing, won't it be the lingering clothes cabinet in your mouth? Urahara Kazuki nodded proudly. You researched it during the time you went back to Jinglingding. A super spirit that can cover more than 10 people. Chapter 139 Arrancars joins. Advertisement regarding Urahara Kazuki's melon seeds. Sometimes even Shimo had to admit that in the three realms, there were few cleverer than him. It seems that this oversized Lingshi clothing has only been expanded tenfold, but the design of Ling's structure, spiritual flow pattern, etc., all need to be replanned. Its manufacturing difficulty has not only increased tenfold. Of course, this thing is of no use to Shimo. Okay, don't show off. Shimo said perfunctorily, you can save this stuff yourself. Oh. Urahara Kazuki lost his interest and put away the oversized coffin suit. In that case, I can only wish you all the best. Shimo nodded and picked up Nilou in his arms. The black cat leapt to his shoulder again and said goodbye. Goodbye, Kazuki. Urahara Kazuki nodded and watched the group leave through the gate. Shimo stretched out his index finger and nodded in the air, and an unpretentious portal appeared, directly pulling on both sides. Since he has realized the ability of space cutting, he can use some simple space skills without going through Zanpakutō. In effect, there is no difference. The hell butterfly emerged. Shimo held Nilou and stepped into the gate. With the closing of the barrier gate, Urahara Kazuki's eyes became somewhat meaningful. Soul Society, which has finally settled down, is probably about to cause some trouble again. I hope they will be all right, because Shimo just talked about what happened in Soul Society some time ago. So Urahara Kazuki doesn't know Shimo's influence in Soul Society now. At the same time, it also underestimated the chaos that this incident might cause. Soul Society, in front of the gate. With the opening of the gate, the gatekeeper immediately cheered up and prepared to register Shinigami personnel. When, Captain Shimo. Few Shinigami don't know what Shimo looks like. When it was the captain of the 3rd Division team, it had spread to the entire Yuling Ting. Shimo walked slowly out of the gate, Nilou hung on him like a koala, staring at everything in front of him curiously. Different from the present world and the scenery in Hueco Mundo, it makes it a little intent for a while. Returning personnel, Kyōraku Shimo, captain of the 3rd Division. Shimo walked to the 850 goalkeeper and said calmly. +2 Ajukas Manos Grande and 1 Vasto Lord Manos Grande. Guru. A very clear sound of swallowing saliva came from the goalkeeper's throat. What did I just hear? Must be too tired from work recently and hallucinations. How could Captain Shimo bring Manos Grande like Ajukas and Vasto Lord back to Soul Society? Impossible. Impossible. Yo, hello, brother. Peishui suddenly leaned in front of the goalkeeper and brought the hole in his face to his eyes. Look, imaginary, hole, oh. What? Realizing that there was really an Ajukas level Manos Grande in front of him, the goalkeeper subconsciously pulled out his Zanpakutō and went into battle. Peishui in points. Shimo reprimanded him and explained. You don't need to use force, you can directly report this matter to the team. The goalkeeper asked tremblingly. Then, at that time, Captain Shimo. Me, what should I do, how do I report? Shimo frowned and gave Peishui a look. It's fine to report truthfully, I will explain this to Captain Yamamoto. The goalkeeper nodded in fear. After that, Shimo took Nilu and the others and left the gate. They swaggered on the streets of the stagnant palace, ignoring the gaze of others. Soon, the entire Ling Ting spread the news. Kyōraku Shimo, the captain of the 3rd Division, brought back 3 Arrancars from this world. In terms of intelligence, the 2nd Division is the most informed. The Broken Bee found Shimo the first time, Because of the continuous high-speed shunpo, when the Broken Bee catches up with Shimo, it will inevitably pant a bit. I traversed the entire Yuling Ting and finally found you. Sure enough, the information is real, you actually brought back 3. Patter. Before the Broken Bee could finish his words, he felt a sinking on his shoulders.
Little Broken Bee, I didn't expect you to care about little Shimo so much.
Bia. A familiar voice appeared in the ears, which immediately made Broken Bee's body tight. Knight, Yoruichi-sama? She looked at the black cat on her shoulder in surprise, and asked subconsciously. Haven't you returned to this world? The black cat shook its body and scattered several cat hairs. What's good in this world, I just went out with Shimo on official business.
Hearing this, Broken Bee's eyes suddenly lit up, and he asked quickly. Advertisement. Then Yoruichi-sama, won't you leave this time? The black cat nodded and said. This is natural, but you haven't answered my question yet.
By the way, why do you care about little Shimo so much? Broken Bee's face suddenly turned red, and 2 blushes flew on his cheeks. Actually she has not been able to say a complete sentence several times in a row.
When Shimo on the side saw this, evil interest arose in his heart and said.
Fei Liwi Patriarch just went to the 3rd Division team building yesterday, she told me not. Before he could finish his words, he was covered by the Broken Bee. The blush on his face became thicker and spread to the base of his ears. One is the person I admired most, and the other is the person I like now.
Feelings of indifference and calmness cannot be expressed in front of them.
The black cat jumped back on Shimo's shoulders, stretched out the cat's claws, selected the bee's head, and comforted. Okay, don't worry about these minutiae. The previous sentence made Broken Bee feel relieved, or Yoruichi-sama knows that he cares about me.
However, the next sentence is to make it like an ice cellar.
In fact, this matter is no longer a secret in Yulingting. Since Feng Liwi was transferred from the criminal army, she has exposed her nature of 8 trigrams. The patriarch of the bee family, who can't keep any secrets, is very famous in the Jingling court. Sui Feng's body was immediately tense, and his heart was cold. The life ahead seems to be gloomy. Shimo stretched out his hand and pinched Shattered Bee's cheek lightly.
When everything settles down, I will naturally visit Feng's house.
Hearing this, Broken Bee suddenly felt that the world was bright again.
Really? Shimo nodded affirmatively. The black cat stood on his shoulders, looking at Broken Bee with an excited look, couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. Poor little Broken Bee, I really can't get away now.
When everyone was talking, a figure flew from a distance. The other party didn't mean to play Ryotsu. Shojiro Sasaki is here. The black cat's eyes shrank, and he distinguished the opponent's Ryotsu. As the adjutant of Yamamoto Genryusai, his popularity in the lingering palace is no less than that of other captains. Shojiro Sasaki stopped Shunpo and came to Shimo. Captain Shimo. The other party's expression is serious, quite intent to inquire about crimes. Captain Yamamoto invites you to the first team building.
Shimo nodded and said, I see. Shojiro Sasaki continued.
The captain meant that you'd better bring. He glanced behind Shimo and distinguished Nelu and their Ryotsu.
The 3 of them. Shimo's expression didn't change at all, and he said lightly.
Don't worry, I will explain clearly to the captain. The 3 of them belong to the harmless Arrancar, and there is no need to look at them with such vigilant eyes.
Although he said that, Shojiro Sasaki did not relax his vigilance at all.
Shojiro, can I go with me too? The black cat said. Shojiro Sasaki looked up and noticed the presence of the black cat. Shihuan Yoruichi. He suddenly remembered the role Shihuan Yoruichi played in the Aizen defection incident some time ago. Immediately nodded, Shojiro Sasaki whispered. Sure. You are now innocent. Under the leadership of Shojiro Sasaki, everyone came all the way to the side of the mountain, in the team house. The office of the captain of the 1st Division, boom. The dull sound of heavy objects resounded in the office. Yamamoto Genryusai is on fire. Kyōraku Shimo, captain of the 3rd Division, I need a reasonable explanation. Compared with Yamamoto Genryusai's attention, Shimo's Jado seems a bit thirsty. Nilu, she was brought back by the way when I went to Hueco Mundo for a mission last time. The first team has 3 seats for Madarei Mikaku, 4 seats for Asido, and 5 seats for Guan Shuangong, who all know her. Zhigan, the 2 guys lying on the ground, are Nilu's subordinate officers. Under the threat of Ryotsu, Captain Yamamoto, these 2 weaker guys couldn't stand up at all. But Nilu, who was next to Shimo, didn't feel any discomfort. Hearing Shimo's introduction, Yamamoto Genunagi's slender white eyebrows twitched and his eyes lifted slightly. Subordinate officer. Because of the previous appearance of Baichingong, Soul Society seems to have a general information about Espada. Shimo nodded and said calmly, advertisement, Nilu's full name is Nelly El Duodecifik, and he is the third Espada in front of the Palace of the Knight of the Night. Dongchaka and Peishui are its subordinate officers. Afterwards, Shimo recounted Nilu's past roughly. After its retelling, Yamamoto Genryuze fell into thinking. After a long time, he slowly said, Captain Shimo, did you know that it was a serious crime to bring Shu into the palace? Shimo nodded and said, but this matter, as long as the highest judicial authority Central 46 agrees, isn't it all right? Hearing that, Yamamoto Yuan Luze is speechless for a while. What Shimo said is indeed possible. The old man finally understands why you have to vote for all the votes for Rukongai's Kawashita Inquisitor. Yamamoto Motoyanagi shook his head and sighed. The old man will not pursue this matter again. But you need to be responsible for your actions. If there is a false attack on Shinigami in Yulingting, the three of them will be the first suspects. Speaking of the last, Yamamoto Genryusai broke out with great majesty. Shimo nodded, he knew it naturally. Nile and others did not trust him too much, and did not take it too seriously. Boom. There was another sound of a cane tapping on the ground. Yamamoto Genryusai took the matter over and changed the question. Shihuan Yoruichi, what's the so-called thing about your return to the Lingting Palace this time? The black cat stretched his shoulders without the slightest sense of tension. The captain doesn't have to worry about it. Since my guilt has been cleared, it means that I am now innocent. Returning to Yulingting, what awaits me is nothing more than two results. One is to re-elect the captain of the second squad and take care of Shingjun and other troops, and the second is to find a new squad to join. Yamamoto Yuanyunagi said in a deep voice. So, what is your choice? The black cat raised his head and said without any hesitation. I want to join the 3rd Division. Yamamoto Genryusai's expression did not change at all, as if he had already guessed the answer. Can? Shimo said to the side. Yamamoto Motoyanagi shook his head and sighed. The old man will not pursue this matter again, but you need to be responsible for your actions. If there is a false attack on Shinigami in Yulingting, the three of them will be the first suspects. Speaking of the last, Yamamoto Genryusai broke out with great majesty. Shimo nodded, he knew it naturally. Nile and others did not trust him too much, and did not take it too seriously. Boom. There was another sound of a cane tapping on the ground. Yamamoto Genryusai took the matter over and changed the question. Shihuan Yoruichi, what's the so-called thing about your return to the Lingting Palace this time? The black cat stretched his shoulders, without the slightest sense of tension. The captain doesn't have to worry about it. Since my guilt has been cleared, it means that I am now innocent. Returning to Yulingting, what awaits me is nothing more than two results. One is to re-elect the captain of the second squad and take care of Shingjun and other troops, and the second is to find a new squad to join. Yamamoto Yuanyunagi said in a deep voice. So, what is your choice? The black cat raised his head and said without any hesitation. I want to join the 3rd Division. Yamamoto Genryusai's expression did not change at all, as if he had already guessed the answer. Can? Shimo said to the side. If this is the case, let Nilu and the others join the 3rd Division. Even if it is a subordinate officer, it also has the strength of an official. Hearing this, Yamamoto Genryuze was lost in thought. Join the reserve first, and leave it to be seen. Walking out of the captain's office, Shimo breathed a sigh of relief. Yamamoto Genryusai was unexpectedly easy to talk this time, perhaps because of Shimo's previous record, or perhaps because of Shimo's influence in the Yuling court. Or both. No matter what, Nilu can be at ease by her side. 3rd Division Team House. The teammates looked at their captain dumbfounded, brought back 3 Arrancars Manos Grande, and announced. From now on, they will be a member of the 3rd Division. The teammates looked at each other, but they didn't mean to disobey Shimo's order. Yes. The loud shout came from a long distance outside the 3rd team building. The news that the 3rd Division had accepted 3 Arrancars Manos Grande team members was also spread among the travelers. Chapter 140 New check-in task, the seal that was broken. Advertisement for this matter, Yulingting's team members have different attitudes. Some people think that Nilu and the others will become a potential threat to Soul Society. If they are not closely guarded, they will inevitably cause serious losses. But the center-right people think that Qian needs to take care of this matter. Kyōraku Shimo, the captain of the 3rd Division, has proven his abilities with many incidents. Even the Manos Grande of Vasto Lord level, in front of the captain of the 3rd Division, there is no threat at all. There are also other people who think that the virtual joining of Gode 13 is a good start, breaking the conventions that have existed for thousands of years. Those who hold this view are undoubtedly the Shiba family, one of the 4 nobles. The 3rd Division, the captain's team house. Nilu returned to her full form, sitting cross-legged on the tatami, with her knees sitting cross-legged and staring at the person in front of her. The opposite person, even in a generous death frost suit, can't be captured. He is dressed in a human figure. Shiba Kong has been completely integrated into the life of Gode 13. And after Shimo became the captain of the 3rd Division, she was the first to send an application for transfer to Overy Huli. In this regard, Unohana Retsu does not seem to agree with this matter. However, it also gave Shiba Sorasuru significant authority in the 4th Division, and promoted him to the 3rd officer of the 4th Division. Looking at each other for a while, Shiba Kong stretched out his hands on Nilu's face, choosing cakes for a while. Woohoo! Nilu made a cry for unknown reasons, but there was no dissatisfaction. Considering that as Nilu's Ryotsu completely recovers, it may appear more in this form in the future. So Shimo temporarily lent him his Death Tyrant and Captain Haori. Fortunately, his figure belongs to the relatively tall type.
Otherwise, in the form of Nilu at this time, she might not be able to wear it.
Is this the so-called Vasto Lord Manos Grande? Shiba Kong looked curious and stopped kneading in his hands. Jealousy is indeed Vasto Lord Manos Grande. Shimo emptied his eyes and replied. You can never think that she is not strong just because she looks harmless to humans and animals. It is no exaggeration to say that even if Kaien exerts his full strength, it is estimated that he will not be able to withstand Nilu's set of combos. Hearing this, Shiba Kong showed a hint of surprise on his face. So strong. With that, she rubbed Nilu's face again. The curious character is fully reflected in him snapped. Nilu knocked out her handhaul and hummed, I'm very strong. As she said, she hugged Shimo and rubbed against him, showing a very attached expression. Shell-shaped, deep unease floats in the crane's claws in the last wave. Why do you feel that you are not as competitive as a Manos Grande? Shiba Kong looked at Ni, waist-length aquamarine hair, beautiful face is tattooed with pu'e-colored facial lines. Arrancars' skull mask is worn on top of the head, and further down is a proud figure that cannot be ignored. The black Death Tyrant outfit is matched with Shimo's Captain Haori, which adds a bit of superior vibe to it. Although this so-called aura would disappear in front of Shimo. But no matter how you look at it, Sighting is not inferior to herself in appearance. A sense of danger emerged in Shiba Konghi's heart. This is the sixth sense from a woman. Shimo didn't see what Shiba Sora was thinking, but even if he knew it, he wouldn't care about it.
Shiba Kong is a smart person, and will not exclude Nilu from appearing.
Boom. At this moment, Shihuan Yoruichi walked in from outside holding a pile of documents. No, little Shimo. Today's documents have all been corrected, let's sign. Since Shihuan Yoruichi joined the 3rd Division, Kira Izuru has retired to the 3rd position and gave up the position of deputy captain to Shihuan Yoruichi. To Shimo's surprise, Shihuan Yoruichi was not the kind of idle captain before. Her business ability is even far superior to Kira Izuru. After a brief reacquaintance, Shihuan Yoruichi only took less than a day to complete all the official duties of the 3rd Division. Shimo opened the file, without looking at it, and with a big wave of his hand, he danced directly on the dragon and phoenix. With his business ability, it is estimated that it is very laborious to understand this. With that effort, it's better to spend some time to practice kendo. To be honest, if it were not for Kyōraku Shunsui's multiple visits, he would not have been the captain of any team. Advertisement honestly, in the 4th Division, is it not good to be an uncontested mighty fish? By the way, there is a captain meeting today. Shihuan Yoruichi put his finger on his chin, thinking. After hearing this, Shimo was surprised. Didn't you just have a captain meeting a few days ago? This meeting is too frequent today, right? Shihuan Yoruichi said helplessly. After the previous battle, the defection of the 3 captains, the death of all the 46 rooms, even the case 100 years ago was involved. With so many things, how can a captain meeting be able to solve them all? In this regard, Shimo is also a little speechless. Gode 13 is good everywhere, it is the efficiency of this work, which is really a headache. The other teams are better, only this team. Frequent operations that ordinary people cannot understand. Obviously, it is possible to take orders for the 46th room, but the one who sticks to the machine aluminum shows that Liuyan insists on the 46th room before he can continue to act. The accidents caused by this kind of mysterious operation are no longer once or twice. The appointment of the new 46th room must be another captain meeting. Shimo saved his eyebrows. If that's the case, then I'll go there. A team, in the conference room, except for the 5th and 7th divisions, the remaining captains all came here. Obviously, Yamamoto still pays more attention to the newly appointed Central 46. Ahem, congratulations, Captain Shimo. Jashiro Yukitaki rarely appeared at the captain's meeting and took the initiative to talk to Shimo. It's really pleasantly surprised and unexpected. I didn't expect you to take up the position of captain so quickly. In the last appointment ceremony, Jashiro Yukitaki did not attend because of his body. When I saw Shimo again, he had successfully become the captain. Shimo smiled and said modestly, thanks to the approval of the captains. As soon as he said this, Kyōraku Shunsui on the side couldn't help but look sideways. In his impression, it's quite rare to be able to say this with Shimo's face. Soon, the captains arrived. Yamamoto Genryusai sat in the middle, pressing the cane with Ryujin Jaka with both hands, and looking around the crowd. Boom! Suddenly, There was silence. Then, this captain meeting officially begins.
Yamamoto Genyanagi squinted his eyes slightly, and said slowly.
This meeting is mainly aimed at the appointment of the new 46th room and what is happening in this world.
Hearing this, Shimo frowned slightly, somewhat surprised.
What's wrong with Chenyu again? Are there so many disasters? Ignoring the changes in the faces of everyone present, Yamamoto Genryusai continued. Room 46 felt a great threat to the appearance of the rebel Aizen. In this regard, they expanded the authority of Godei 13 and demanded that the defense of the underground chamber be strengthened. When necessary, it can be blocked by Kido forbidden technique. Having said that, Yamamoto Genryusai paused slightly and observed the looks of everyone. Everyone, your authority has been expanded from now on. But at the same time, the responsibility is greater. As for the Kido forbidden technique, the Chief Kido and the 3rd Division Captain Shimo will be in charge. Hearing this, Shimo had an unexpected expression on his face.
This thing can also involve me. Byakuya Kuchiki on the side said.
Who told you to show Hado, the chant of giving up on the 99th? Obviously, this bad friend seemed to be in a good mood at this time, a little gloating. Byakuya Kuchiki knows Shimo's character. He has always disliked such unprofitable things. Shimo was helpless and agreed. Advertisement seeking flowers.
Okay, I'll go to the underground chamber at that time. The new check-in task has been released. Please host the check-in in the underground chamber. Closing square bracket.
Task reward. Kido forbidden technique. To Shimo's surprise, after he agreed to the order, he immediately triggered a new check-in task. The task content is also extremely simple. There are no additional requirements, just need to arrive in the underground chamber, it is enough. Kido forbidden technique. Shimo's eyes flowed, thinking about it all at once. He is very clear about Kido forbidden technique as far as he knows. There are only 2 Kido forbidden techniques. The first is the cessation of time, and the second is the transfer of space. The former is somewhat similar to his Zanpakutō liberation, but has many limitations. The predecessor, Kido Tessai, had used these 2 Kido forbidden techniques in succession in order to save Vizard and others in the hollow state. At that time, he must have maintained Kido's release state. According to the Yulingting regulations set by the previous Central 46, these 2 Kido are forbidden techniques. That's because the stop of time and the shift of space will destroy the order of time and space in the Stagnation Palace. What Shimo has always shown to the people of the Ling Court is only the stagnation of space, which belongs to the normal space system Zanpakutō's liberation ability. Therefore, Central 46 did not hold Shimo accountable. As for whether the spatial cutting violates Jinglingting's spatial order, Shimo is unclear. Anyway, the previous Central 46 was dead. The new batch will more or less make certain changes to the regulations. The order to allow Kido forbidden technique to guard the underground chamber has already been reflected. Yamamoto nodded and continued. Then next is another matter of this captain meeting. Compared with the changes in room 46, this matter is even more important. Hearing this, everyone cheered up. Yamamoto Yuan Liuyan coughed slightly, and his eyebrows moved slightly. Hundreds of years ago, there was a genius shinigami who had high hopes from the old man in Soul Society. Citing as not weak in talent, Shunsui and Jashiro, the old man once wanted to accept him as his disciple. Having said that, Yamamoto Genryusai looked at Shimo with a strange look. Looking at it, Shimo suddenly became vigilant. What do you mean? Is it possible that you still want to accept me as a disciple? His gaze was fleeting. Yamamoto Genryusai shook his head disappointedly and continued. After that genius became the son-in-law of the Kuchiki family. Wait, you explain to me that disappointed look, what does it mean? Shimo was expressionless. Having said that, he already guessed the outline of an event in his mind. He looked at the expressionless, iceberg-shaped Byakuya Kuchiki, trying to see the change in his expression. The genius Shinigami mentioned by Yamamoto is clearly Kuchiki Kuhei. At that time, this genius made a big mistake under impulsive emotions because of unfair treatment. So, the old man and Kuchiki Silverbell, the head of the Kuchiki family, sealed it together in Karakura town. But the day before yesterday, the seal was broken and Kuchiki Shangha escaped from it. Hearing this, the captains on the scene turned their eyes to Shimo with a leisurely expression. The timing of this incident is too coincidental. The day before yesterday, Shimo had just returned from this world and brought back 3 Arrancars Manos Grande to join the 3rd Division. Such information has been spread to Yulingting. Hoo-ha. The strange laughter came from Kuratsuchi Miyuri's mouth. His expression was a bit crazy. Obviously, the seal was arranged jointly by the Captain Yamamoto and the former owner of Kuchiki. It's impossible for a Kuchiki river to break through. Among them, there must be someone else assisting him. As soon as this statement came out, all the spearheads were directed at Shimo. Faced with everyone's gaze, Shimo's eyes were calm and did not change much. After a long time, Yamamoto Genryusai said in a deep voice. Kyōraku Shimo, captain of the 3rd Division, do you have anything to say?